Welcome.
Hey.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This has been such an exciting year for my family and me. In June, I became Miss Hawaii, and 2 months later, my parents upstaged me by being named Parents of the Millennium by the Philippine Cultural Foundation of Hawaii. As immigrants, they came to America in search of a better life for our family. Well, 30 years and 10 children later, they've succeeded in college educating all of us. To me, they're the epitome of the American dream and are the foundation of my character.
I see you. I have the first question today. You were one of many siblings, many children in your family. Does that motivate you in some special way to achieve?
I think all of us are achievers in different areas. I'm the only one of the of my 6 siblings, my sisters at least, who went into pageantry. They really succeed in everything that they do. My sister is a reporter on Fox News. Another sister of mine is an architect. The other ones have children. They work in the airline industry. They're all successful, and I think it's because we wanted to find our niche and what made us successful. And yes, it was a motivating factor, but it was also because of the parental involvement that I had from my mother and father.
In what ways is Hawaii a great example of being America's melting pot today?
Hawaii is so diverse. I think everyone in Hawaii is colorblind. For me, I had friends who are Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, Black, Mexican. It doesn't matter what culture you are. I think it is a prime example of a melting pot because we're all colorblind, and there's hardly any racism. I think it's a little bit everywhere, but not so much in Hawaii. I haven't really been exposed to it.
And what about the Hawaii for Hawaiians movement, and what is the stigma relative to the U.S. government and the history of Hawaii?
There are 2 different factions, I guess you could say. They're the activists, the purists who want to have the monarchy continuing in Hawaii. Then there are other people who want the federal recognition, and they think that's good enough to just be recognized, just as the Indians have been recognized. So for me, I believe that it's good to have federal recognition. I don't believe we should go back to the monarchy.
What did the U.S. government do to the Hawaiians?
The U.S. government, when they came in and they overthrew the government back in the 1800s, they took away the monarchy, and then they annexed it and made it a state. So that's the answer to your question. They overtook the government.
Your platform is character.
Yes.
What is the difference between reputation and character?
Reputation. I guess reputation is the way other people see you. Character is who you are. They are the character traits that make you a person, such as perseverance or integrity or courage. All these things that make up a person. So it's the way people see you, and character is, I believe, who you really are.
What's the character trait you think is your best? Which one do you work on every day?
I work on a lot every day. I think the biggest one would have to be respect. When I teach my students about respect, we have actually 4 character traits that we talk about every day in school. Mutual respect, which is the biggest one, which is respect for yourself, others, and the world around you. There's attentive listening with your eyes, ears, heart, and whole body. There are no put-downs. We show appreciation. And finally, the right to pass. But mutual respect is definitely the umbrella over all of them.
I think you want to be a motivational speaker, and your platform is character.
Exactly.
Bill Clinton is a wonderful orator and can give a speech that moves audiences. Is the ability to speak well the criteria for letting one be a motivational speaker? How do you earn that right?
I think you have to earn respect, first of all. Nobody has the right to get respect. You can be the oldest sibling and say, I demand respect, but you can't get respect unless you give it. You can be a great speaker, but if you don't have character, I think that comes across.
How did social promotion come to be accepted, and how much damage has it done?
I'm not exactly sure how it became accepted, but I know it happens a lot. I don't agree with it because we can't just let kids fall through the cracks in school. We can't just say, all right, we want you to stay with the rest of your class and go on to the next level. We have to nip the problem in the bud and stop it before they go and get promoted. I think we need to focus on education in that respect.
Why do you think that Asians, particularly Asian women, are so stereotyped in the media?
I think Asians in general, when they come from their countries, for instance, China, or the Japanese women, they're supposed to step 5 steps behind their man. I don't believe that. I'm Asian. I'm a Filipino, obviously, but I'm first-generation American. So I understand, kind of like with that movie Joyride Club, I don't know if you've seen it, there's a dichotomy, what happens in the foreign country and what happens in America. And because I'm first-generation America, I don't think that I live with that stereotype, and if I do, I don't think I come across in that respect.
But why do you think it happens, though? It does happen.
Because it's a cultural thing, I think.
I mean, there's Bruce Lee, and then there's everybody else. There's Jackie. You know, there are lots of they're almost symbols I don't know whether negative or positive, but there's not enough knowledge about Asian life in America, I think. That's why stereotypes persist. Do you agree?
I agree. There isn't enough. Same thing with any other culture that is an Asian culture. They don't understand, and I think that's when we talk about the melting pot, like the first judge here has said. Melting pot in Hawaii. There's a Chinatown. There's a Florist de Mayo festival. There are things catered to every culture, so we don't really see that a lot, like I said, in Hawaii. But I think it's important to have that stretch to the rest of the nation, not just in Hawaii.
Can character be taught? Can character
Character
be taught?
must be taught. I think it has to be taught and modeled. Primary educators are your parents, first of all, but it has to carry on to the community and the rest of the school.
How do you teach character?
By modeling, like I said, as a teacher. Some people say that character is built into school, that it's ingrained. That's not the case. I've seen teachers who have been teachers for 25, 30 years, and they've lost the passion for it. For me, I finished my first year teaching, so I'll be a second-year teacher. But coming into it, I was just so motivated and so excited about working with my children and my students that I feel that I had to model what good character traits are. When I ask the kids, do you want some water? They'll say yes. So they say, thank you, Ms. Baracchio. And when I'm done, I'll say, you're welcome. If someone falls down, they'll say, Ms. Baracchio, today I picked up a friend of mine. They fell down, and I say, wow. Or, for instance, one of my students in first grade, he raises his hand. And I say to him, can I help you? And he says, I practice perseverance. And I said, really? He says, I heard a song on the radio that talks about perseverance. And I said, how does it go? First grade. He starts singing, if at first you don't succeed, you can dust it off and try again. And I said, that is amazing. I know that he's internalized, but I've been teaching him every single day in school. So it has to be taught and it has to be modeled.
The entertainment business has a lot of role models that maybe aren't the kind that they should be. What do you tell your students about some of those people, and who do you think are good role models today and who aren't so good?
I'm not the one to say who's a good and a bad role model. I have to be a good role model myself. I think that's the parents' place for them to say what you can watch, what you can't watch. It is our responsibility as teachers to say what's right and what's wrong. In the industry, I believe in the freedom of choice, freedom of press, and the First Amendment. So they can do whatever they want, but we have to teach children discernment and have them able to distinguish between what's right and what is wrong.
Hawaii is a single district school system.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you feel about the quality of education going on in Hawaii?
The quality of education can improve a lot. I have to tell you that. I worked in the public school system for 2 years when I was student teaching. The morale of the teachers is low. I work in the private sector now. I'm very happy, not to say that I have no faith in the public school system, but I'm working at my alma mater, and I wanted to give back because I graduated from Holy Family Catholic Academy about 10 years ago. But the students are great. They really look up to me as a role model because they say, Coach Angie used to be here. She used to be in our shoes. In fact, I had the best send-off. I have to tell you this. I'm sorry. I had the best send-off. My school really welcomed me, and they gave me a picture when I was in 8th grade for my yearbook. I was voted most all around, and the 8th graders presented that to me with leis, and it was really beautiful.
Do you believe in vouchers in charter schools?
I believe in charter schools. I'm not really a big proponent of vouchers, simply because I think we should work on the educational system rather than putting money to the private schools. My parents worked very hard to put all 10 of us through private schools and institutions for college. But because they wanted to, they never said, we'll give us a handout. And I feel that vouchers are a handout because if they're willing to work for the education, then I think it means more.
Lack of morals and lack of character is an issue among our kids today. Somebody's to blame. Do you think it's mostly the parents, schools, the entertainment industry?
I think it's a combination of all of them. Parents, again, are the primary educators, but it's our responsibility as community members, citizens, teachers, and the entertainment industry to work together to try to bridge that so that we can provide them with positive.
How will you help them to work together? Because I guess they're not doing that very well at the moment.
I think what's important is, like what I said, the national organization that I'd like to link up with is America's Promise. I work with some people in Hawaii, so the Hawaii chapter of America's Promise. And what they do is they have role models come into school and speak and teach and talk to the students. We also give them opportunities to serve. So when you have the children being involved in other things and taking the emphasis off of themselves, then you're able to give back to the community and you build morale.
What's right or wrong with physical education on the elementary level in schools?
I believe that some people who are hired are not educated to teach it. For me, as an elementary school teacher, I had my bachelor's in elementary ed. So
Not physical education.
Not physical education, but I was able to, when I got certified, I graduated with certification at the University of Hawaii. So when I was certified, I was able to teach any course subject from K through 6, which enabled me to teach PE because I was certified to do so. So I did take courses in PE. Plus, I've been playing sports since I was in 5th grade, and I played varsity sports in high school for 4 years. So it was kind of a shoo-in for me because I also volunteered as an assistant coach prior. So
should they have a qualified person who
There
studies
should
physical
definitely.
education as a teacher over someone who loves sports?
I think somebody who knows what they're doing, I think I know what I was doing because I had the background in education. There are people, because there's a shortage of teachers, in the next decade we need 1 million teachers because of the shortage.
Ms.
That's a
Hawaii, your
problem.
time's almost up.
No!
Feel free to go on that path or conclude and give us your closing.
Okay. Well, because it hasn't come up, I'm going to talk about something that's very special to me and unique to the Hawaiian culture, and that's hula. I've chosen hula for my talent. Probably you're wondering why, because I sing also. I play the keyboards in a rock band with my sisters. But I've chosen it for several reasons. First of all, it's got a rich history and a cultural significance to the islands, but also because it's a beautiful art form which really communicates the spirit of aloha. And I think, coming from Hawaii, I've been ingrained with that. And I want to be able to share that with you and the rest of the nation. When I dance hula, I use all of my senses. I get to use my eyes. I get to use my hands. I get to smile, where I won't always be able to do that when I'm singing because you're making all these different faces. But I get to smile, and I really get to share the energy that comes from the deepest part of me, I guess I have to say. So that's why I chose the hula. I'm very, very proud to be here and represent my state. It's such an honor. The most beautiful place in the world. It's paradise, and getting emotional. But my students, I got a letter from she's a 4th grader now. I had her from 2nd grade, and she said, "I'm so proud of you, Miss Baracchio. I can't wait to see you on TV." I'm sorry I'm crying right now. But
And I'm sorry your time's up.
thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you.
afternoon.
Good luck.
Good
Aloha.
luck.
I'm so pleased that I had an extra month to make appearances as Miss Louisiana before coming to compete. I've been so busy, and I really feel like I have a taste of what it would be like to be Miss America. Just a small taste, but nevertheless, I've had some great highlights over my summer. I've had the opportunity to visit with the LVA Public Policy Advisor in Washington, and also meet personally with the United States Secretary of Education, Richard Riley. I would love to share a little bit about those experiences with you and anything else, any other questions you have for me.
Terrific, Faith. I'm going to start the questioning for you. I noticed that you're in law school at Southern University.
Yes.
That's Southern Baton Rouge.
Yes, that's in Baton Rouge.
Why did you choose to go to a historically African-American college as opposed to LSU or Tulane or any of the colleges in other places? Does that make a difference to you?
Actually, there's a big misconception at Southern Law Center. A lot of people think that it's because the undergraduate university is a historically black university, the Law Center is the same. Actually, our classes are split about 60-40% with minorities and other groups. I'm at LSU Law School, along with other law schools in the state, but I chose to go to Southern because I had a full scholarship there, and that meant a lot to me to be able to have that scholarship and pay for school and not have to work there in your first year, if at all. I didn't want to work, so that was a great opportunity for me, and I took advantage of it.
Terrific. Louisiana and many other southern states are cited as having rather low test scores throughout all areas of study. Do you think, or what is the answer?
Vouchers are a temporary solution, I think, to the problem. Yes, we have low test scores in my state. Just last year, we implemented a high-stakes testing where students are they're no longer socially promoted in my state. They use these tests as a basis to establish their merit. Vouchers are good for, I think, poor students who are trapped in non-performing schools. Every child in America deserves to have a chance at a quality education. But when you look at vouchers and you look at the type of schools that these kids go to, there are schools where education is emphasized, parental involvement is emphasized, smaller classes are emphasized. We can carry that over into the public school system. So the challenge is for our public schools to replicate the programs that the voucher schools have.
Can they do this when they're losing funds to vouchers and charter schools?
I don't understand that argument. I actually met with my superintendent of education, and that's the same question that he asked me. But the fact is, I do not want to see a child. I went to an inner city school for 2 years in high school before I transferred to a school outside of my community because of the fact that I wasn't learning and I wasn't growing. I did not have time to wait for the school to revamp. It was my obligation, a duty, to get the quality education that I deserved as an American citizen. Once again, it's a temporary solution, but I think once the public school system see their needs, maybe that will help them to proceed in their efforts to educate their students effectively.
Faith, I see that you want to be a juvenile judge.
Yes.
And I say you go for it. Just don't come to Tennessee and run again. I want to know what you think about automatic transfers for juveniles who commit crimes to adult court in the adult system. What as a judge how would you feel?
For the most part, I'm opposed to it. I think you have to look at the facts and circumstances in each particular case, especially when you have juveniles, young people. When young people are sent into the adult prison system, they are 8 times more likely to commit suicide, 5 times more likely to be raped, and 2 times more likely to be assaulted than if they were placed into a juvenile facility where there's a greater chance that they can have the treatment and the alternative programs that they deserve. When we send a child into our adult prison system, it's like sending out a message that it's more important that we punish them and take them off of the streets than give them they deserve to build the skills and confidence necessary to lead a productive life upon release.
And you understand that. How does that relate to your illiteracy platform?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a direct correlation between illiteracy and juvenile delinquency?
Absolutely. 85% of our juvenile offenders are functionally illiterate. This past year I volunteered in a juvenile prison in my state, and the kids would write me letters after I would leave every week. And it was evident, even in their letters that they were writing, that they had a very hard time communicating effectively. I believe that when we give our children the educational opportunities they deserve, they have options in life. They see how they fit. When they see how they fit, they won't act like misfits.
What do you think about youth court, taking juvenile offenders out of the system and putting them right in the hands of their peers?
It works in some cases. Now, you have to understand that I've met a 15-year-old a couple of weeks ago who committed murder. Now, for some cases where crimes are very violent offenses, I don't think that's necessarily the right thing to do. But once again, you have to evaluate each child, the crime that he or she has committed, their age, and all the other circumstances to decide what's best for that child.
If you got out of your high school, a lot of kids can't. How can you help them if you're Miss America?
I have a message as Miss America to, number one, not be limited by your circumstances, not be limited by who your parents are or where you come from. To know that if you want something in life, work hard for it, go for your dream. That's exactly what I did. So I'm a living example of that, how you don't have to just be limited by someone else's opinion of you. Don't let someone else's...
Of making a whole group of kids very, very sad. Do you think that rap music has a bad influence on kids? Well, what do you think about it, really, rap music today?
Some rap music is not negative. Now, we hear a lot about rap stars like Eminem and these other groups who have been in the media a lot lately, and of course the negative, horrible images that they portray to our children. And yes, I do believe that when children are exposed to an aggregate amount of violence, it does affect them in an adverse way. But at the same time, we can turn that around. There are Christian rappers, some who I enjoy, contemporary rappers who do positive lyrics for children, and they can also learn from that as well.
What do you think the biggest challenge is that the Miss America organization is facing today?
There are so many misconceptions still out there about who we are as an organization. When people found out that I was, law students in particularly this past year, when they found out that I was competing in my state pageant, all of a sudden, wait a minute, here you are, you're in law school, you're smart, you're working, and you want to be in a beauty pageant? And, you know, you kind of have to correct that. Yes, when we were established in 1921 on the beaches of Atlantic City, we were a bathing beauty contest. But we have moved far past our historical roots into an organization that celebrates who I am as a woman and helps me to become all that I want to be. The scholarship opportunities, they are endless in this organization. The public needs to be aware of that.
You are an African-American.
Right.
African-American component. I was just going to say that 25 years ago when I won, people very much questioned the relevance of Miss America.
Right.
They still do 25 years later. The pageant's doing something wrong.
How do you write it? Other than getting out and talking about it, which of course you would do as Miss America, but that's not enough.
I totally agree with you. I think that people need to see that the young women, and even people who are vehemently opposed to this organization, they need to see that the young women, we are a representative of today's young women. We are a representative of our future. And even on a decentralized basis, all of our state organizations, all of our local organizations, there's so much that we can do to get the message out there. Now, this is a great way to finance your education. My parents couldn't pay for me to go to college, but Miss America could. And that's where I joined. That's where I started promoting an issue that was important to me through this organization. It gave me a platform. It gave me a voice. It gave me a reason to stand before you today.
You're recommending the mandatory inclusion of your DEAR program into school curriculum. With so many things being mandated in the curriculum, there's not a lot of time for teachers who are often not prepared to teach that particular curriculum to cover all the bases that they need to cover. Where do you stop putting things in the curriculum, and how do teachers make a choice between what to teach and what not to teach?
You said earlier we were talking about our low test scores in Louisiana, so that tells me we've been doing something wrong. That tells me that the things that we have been doing in our curriculum evidently have not been working. So it's time to work like my DEAR program. Now, the researchers have told us about DEAR, and it's just like when you any other skill, even an athlete, any other person, when you have something you want to improve on, you work on it, you practice it, you use it on a daily basis. That's what our children need to do with reading. It's so easy just to pick up a book and read for 20 minutes a day, but the consequences, the results of that are phenomenal. Children can increase their reading comprehension and fluency. It can double in a year's time. So we need to put DEAR as a priority in our educational system if we are serious about graduating students who don't have severe literacy deficiencies.
Governor Bush is suggesting that if he was president, he would change the Head Start program and turn it into a reading program. Do you support that?
I absolutely do. Our children need also universal access to pre-K. They need access to these programs, and they need to be early learning, early reading programs. Studies also show that when children are exposed to reading prior to entering school, they are much more likely to catch on to their schoolwork, to excel better than students who have not been exposed to reading. So it's very important. I think it's an intricate part of pre-K education that children be exposed to that reading.
Yes. You are an African-American woman in a deeply southern state, and I'm thrilled to see that you are interested in statewide politics.
Yes.
What evidence do you have that in today's time this is a very realistic goal for a sharp young woman like yourself?
It's very realistic. As I said earlier, about working hard and sacrificing and knowing that you can do it. It has to be a belief. It comes from within first.
Ms. Louisiana, please feel free to continue that, but I just want to let you know your time is almost up.
Okay. As I was saying, in my state, yes, we've had some problems in the past. We've passed so many laws, just as in any other state, to reduce racism and prejudice and things like that. But I do not see myself as an African-American woman running for a statewide office. I see myself as a woman, a qualified woman with a voice, with a purpose, and ready to influence and have a positive impact on my state.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Doesn't she get another minute?
A minute and a half.
Are there any closing of the time?
Anything else you want to
You've
tell us?
got some time.
Okay, great. Really quickly, I just wanted to tell you that I grew up watching the Miss America pageant too, my mother, my sisters, and I. And we would always root for my home state, Louisiana. And she never won, but we would still root for her nevertheless. And we enjoyed doing that. But I never thought that I could be here. I always thought that, we were talking about the misconceptions earlier, that you had to be wealthy or rich or famous, and I didn't have any of those things. When I was 13 years old, my teacher brought in a video of a motivational speaker, and this motivational speaker told us a story about her life and her circumstances and where she came from, how she wasn't limited by that. It turned a light on in my head, and I knew then that I could reach any goal. Well, that speaker was Miss America 1990, Debbie Turner. And I just wanted to share that with you because my life has been a complete success story, triumph, overcoming adversity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rita Ng, and I was born and raised in a small northern California city called Tracy. I'm one of 5 children. We've all played the piano and violin since the age of 5. I just recently graduated from Stanford, and this has been a bit of a whirlwind for me. I've deferred medical school for a year, and since the last several years, traveling around the nation as well as the world, conducting international healthcare research relating to promoting the health and welfare of children.
This brings you to my first question. Hello, welcome. In looking over your bio, I see you've accomplished a lot. You've received many honors and many awards. And it occurs to me that Asian Americans in this country are often called a model minority. Do you think Asian children are pressured a lot to achieve? Or
I think that's probably one of the biggest stereotypes that exist around my particular ethnicity. I'm actually the first Asian American Miss California, and in a lot of the media interviews, the first question they ask is, how does it feel to be Miss California, particularly being Asian? And I think that the common misperception of us being a model minority is definitely prevalent, and it's not correct. And that's one of the things that I've really worked towards, and I think that I've been very fortunate to grow up in a loving family and a very supportive family, and I've never been pushed. I've played the piano for 17 years, and there's always the image that my parents sat down there with the whip and made me practice, and it was never like that for myself or my siblings. But there are countless children that I've worked with in America as well as I've traveled all around the world, looking at some of the poverty issues that really face young, strong family values. But in another sense, there are very drastic issues that we need to work towards.
As a mother of an Asian daughter, I recently went to China and adopted a child, my husband and I did. What do you think about the plight of the orphan children in China, and what can we do, or do we need to do anything in this country to help those children?
I think that there is an incredible amount of energy that we need to, ourselves as a nation here in the United States as well as around the world, need to do. I spent one summer actually in Guangdong. People are literally plowing rice fields with water buffalo. And more than anything, I think that the thing that I saw was that there is a pervasive attitude towards women, or towards female children in particular. It's called the missing millions. And if you look at the stats between how many women are supposedly born in China versus how many males are born, there's a disproportionate number, and a lot of that is infanticide. And I think that we need to look at children, providing aid not only here in America but abroad as well.
You truly believe in your ability to change the world, you said. What's the very first thing on your agenda?
Well, obviously, it was interesting. This is the first time that I've entered this pageant system about 6 months ago, and the idea of formulating a platform was a bit difficult for me because a lot of the things that I've tried to do throughout my life have really focused on the issues of children. I ultimately want to become a pediatrician, and in terms of changing the world, I think I've been very fortunate in my life through my education through Stanford. I've traveled the last 4 years abroad. What I'd ultimately like to do is open a nonprofit clinic in my hometown of Tracy for disadvantaged children. I've had the incredible opportunity to start a lot of programs in my hometown, and given the opportunity to change the world, that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go out and meet young people and show them just exactly what they can do with their lives. And you know, I can't say that I'm the most successful out of anybody or that I have been given everything in front of me, but I can say that I have been taught by my parents, by my family, by my teachers to follow my heart and to follow my passions.
Well, you know, why 6 months ago did you decide to go on the Miss America pageant?
Well, I ask myself that quite often as well. My sister, I was a senior at Stanford, and my sister was a freshman at school. At the same time, we were actually taking a bioethics class, and it was a rainy, cold day, and I think I had the flu or something like that, or either that or I didn't particularly feel like going to class that evening, and she went for me, and we were both taking the same class, and she came back with this crumpled piece of paper. I still have it in my drawer at home, and it just said, your sister, your neighbor, could be the next Miss America. And they literally had to drag me to my first orientation meeting at locals, and you know, I think for me, I've had a lot of misperceptions about this program. I think a lot of other people do as well. And countless media interviews, the things that they ask me, I have not received a single question about what type of evening gown are you going to be wearing, what type of swimsuit are you wearing. The first question I get is, you graduated from Stanford with a 3.99 GPA, what in the world are you doing in this program? And I think for me, a lot of it is I think that you get knowledge from a lot of different forms in life, often from the places you least expected. And I don't want to look back 20 or 30 years from now and look at my life to think that I had the ability or the opportunity to interact and be in a position in my life where I could challenge and test the stereotypes that not only society places on us, but society places, or that you place on yourself. And, you know, I think I've really tried to embrace that attitude.
What is the stereotype of Miss America? What is the stereotype of Miss America, and what will you be different?
Well, I think a lot of people have asked me, particularly the media, if whether or not I think this is a beauty pageant. And I answer yes, absolutely. It's a beauty pageant, but beauty in a very different sense. I think that beauty comes in a lot of different forms, and if it was simply about the swimsuit, I would not be Miss California, and I certainly would not have entered this program. I think that being Miss America represents and it transcends something a little bit more. I can't quite place my finger on it, and just being here and having spent the summer working with countless volunteers, helping me work on everything from having a physical trainer to learning how to do my makeup. You know, learning how to do my makeup is literally even harder than studying for a chemistry exam for me. And I think that is a stereotype that exists regarding this program, that somebody that is interested in her education, that somebody that's interested in traveling around the world wouldn't be interested in this program. And what I want to do as Miss America, you know, I can't stand before you and tell you that I would be the perfect candidate, but I think through the experiences I've had so far, just traveling around California itself and traveling around the nation, hopefully this is the first summer that I haven't traveled abroad to finish up my research. I think I really want to incense a sense of diversity, a sense of energy, and a sense of passion that you can enter this program with something new, and that there are just tremendous opportunities in it.
Your platform is on welfare for America's children, health and welfare. This is an election year, and again, we've heard a lot of talk about Head Start and the importance of Head Start for children. And one of the candidates has proposed that the Head Start program be bid off for a reading program. What do you think about that?
Well, in an ideal world, I think that we would have both. We'd have the resources for both the reading program as well as the Head Start program. I am an avid supporter of Head Start. I've worked extensively with the Boys and Girls Club in visions of Head Start in terms of giving young children an early opportunity to not only nurture their social skills, but their academic skills. You know, ideal world, we'd have both. And I've listened to both candidates. I'm not exactly sure who I'm going to vote for. I'm still listening to the debates and such. But I think that there is a renewed emphasis between both candidates of education and the importance of that. And
there is a controversial procedure where hospitals are drug testing pregnant mothers and are arresting them if they test positive for any type of illegal substance. Do you think that they should be arrested, and what's your take on how we handle that?
Well, I have a two-part answer to that. First of all, I think that it's critical that we do have testing for pregnant mothers. Hoping to become a pediatrician myself, you know, if I ever get out of medical school, it'll take about a decade or so. But I think that it's critical. I think that we need to start at a young age to educate mothers as well as young children. If you look at the poverty rate, there's over 14 million children living in or at poverty here in the United States of America. And a lot of those are victims of drug abuse. So first of all, yes, I agree with the testing, absolutely. Secondly, I don't think that they should be arrested for that. I think that women and mothers in particular should be able to go into the hospital in a comfort zone, just as there is a sense of confidentiality between patients and the doctor and patients and or clients and the lawyers. I think that the mothers deserve that, and I think that's the ability of our nation to do that.
Ms. California, first off, would you pronounce your last name for me?
Sure. It's actually pronounced Ing. It's like ING, but I've heard it pronounced in every way, so I will answer anything.
My question is, you went to one of, if not the most expensive universities in the country. Was it worth it?
I think absolutely. I was actually born and raised in Tracy, which is actually a pretty small town, and I went through public schooling my entire life. And another question that I've had tremendously throughout the summer is, you know, what private schools did you go to get into Stanford? And, you know, I'm very proud to say I actually just recently had an appearance where I had the opportunity to go back to my hometown and talk to about 1,200 of my former teachers of the entire Tracy School District. And, you know, I think more than any of my appearances, that I was in tears the entire time, just because I think that coming back to my public schooling and showing the kids that, you know, like, you don't need that private school education to get into a pretty prestigious school. I think Stanford has been one of the best times of my entire life. I made a big goal. I was actually accepted into medical school straight from high school into a combined undergrad and medical school program, so I wouldn't have had to take the MCAT or be a pre-med nerd, which I pride myself in college. But I made a vow to myself that I would go to college to learn and to get a lot more than a few more letters behind my name. I think college is a time to explore your loves, to explore your passions, and Stanford has allowed me to do that. I was a human biology major with an emphasis in organizational behavior and health administration, so I had the opportunity to look at a lot of different aspects.
So how do you feel about charter schools and vouchers, since you are a product of the public school system?
Well, I'm not in support of vouchers just because I think that it would take funding away from the public schools. I think the resources and money could be better spent.
Your time's almost up.
Oh.
What would you like to leave us with?
Well,
I didn't
wanna-
get to ask you a question. It would have been wonderful. You would have answered it well.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you for this incredible opportunity. I can't even begin to describe how much this experience has meant to me. If you would have asked me 2 years ago whether or not I would ever be standing before you as Miss California, I think I probably would have laughed and fallen on the floor. It's really been an incredible experience. In one of my travels abroad, I conducted about 600 interviews in Beijing and Taiwan, and I remember one of the villagers came up to me and she held my hand and she told me, and literally translated, that means when drinking water, you must remember its source. And I think more than anything, that thought has stuck in my mind, not only serving as Miss California, but traveling the world. And I think that Miss America really transcends not only socioeconomic boundaries, but ethnic boundaries and cultural boundaries. And I think that she really represents somebody that can inspire not only herself, but those around her. And I can't even begin to describe just how much this experience has meant to me. I was just invited to attend for 4 days, if my schedule allows, to the International Academy of Achievement, where I'll have the opportunity to meet Mikhail Gorbachev, Queen Noor, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, and several others in London. And with that, thank you so much again for this incredible experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Hi, how are you?
Hello again. Growing up on a small farm in Mississippi, I learned about hard work, hard times, perseverance, and overcoming adversity. I also learned that the gift of life is priceless, and each of us possess it. I've always asked, why are we so selfish? Why are we afraid to live and then give? Organ and tissue donation is more than a platform for me. It is a cause. And if I were asked 1 million new organ donors this week, or the crown of Miss America, that choice is easy.
I get the first question, and I'm going to do it on a light note first, and then we'll go back to the platform. Tell all these judges, because I personally know what a boll weevil is. So you're from Pontotoc, Mississippi, so tell them about what a boll weevil is and how important that is to your community.
A boll weevil is just a small little animal that you usually see running around and under the ground in the cotton fields.
Oh, my. My next question would be, back to your platform.
No, really, is there not another animal?
Okay. Organ/tissue donation. Should people be afraid to sign up for that? Many people, I ask that, and I'm going to make you real quick the question, because I can feel if they were in extremis or if they were in an accident, then they wouldn't be saved.
Exactly.
A lot of people think
and that is probably the main misconception that I hear among the audience, is that they will not get the care that they need. But what I try to share with them is that donation is only an option at or near the time of death. When all other medical possibilities are completely exhausted to save a patient's life, that is when donation is an option.
Christy, I want to clear something up a bit, because I'm sure this wasn't intended to be left off, but it says in your platform, an unselfish, anonymous donor gave my father the, and then it stops. What did they give your father?
Oh, sorry. It gave him the gift of life. He was a burn victim at the age of 2, and because of that, he received skin grafts from an anonymous donor, which, if he had not received those, he would not be alive today, and I would not be standing here before you. Usually, with tissue transplants, we do say that those are life-enhancing as opposed to life-saving, where the organs are life-saving. But in the result of a burn victim, they are life-saving because, like I said, it did not set in because that skin was put over the burns.
Should people be allowed to sell their organs?
Absolutely not. I think there's no way possible that you could put a price on a life. And I know with my father's, his life to me is absolutely priceless, and there's no way that I could put a value on that.
Well, one of the real issues now is also fetal tissue.
Exactly.
Do you see a difference between an adult donor deciding to give their organs or tissue as opposed to taking it from an unborn fetus?
No, I think that's great that we have come so far medically that we can take the needed organs or tissues that we need from fetuses. I do know that crosses over into the abortion issue, and I'm not for abortion myself, but then when you have people who are having abortions and you would basically just throw that fetus out, I think that it's great that we can use it to a positive note as opposed to just simply throwing it away.
So do you support a woman's right to choose?
I definitely think a woman should have the right to choose. Like I said before, I would never have one myself. I don't think I would anyway, at least not unless I was put in those shoes. But I do think that a woman should have the right to make that decision for herself.
What about couples who create a child because an existing child has a horrible illness and they just want a genetic match?
Coming from someone who's not a parent myself, I have to think that I would do absolutely anything in this world to save the life of my child, even if that meant me having another one, to give the life to another child. And that way you could have 2 children alive as opposed to none.
Your platform and your talent are a little ways away from being a court reporter. Why do you want to be a court reporter?
I want to be a court reporter because I love the legal environment, but yet that basically gives me some time at home with my family. I think a little bit more so than a law degree would.
Do you think that we can overcome the bad image that lawyers have about not being honest or the integrity issues? Do you think we can overcome that?
Absolutely, and I think I would be in a great position to share that with audiences of the attorneys that I know, and I think just basically being a role model and showing that lawyers are honest.
Miss America, what would one of your biggest issues be? How would you propel your platform forward? Is it getting all the states to have driver's licenses that indicate donorship? I mean, what would the programs be?
Basically, what I want to do, number one, is just create the awareness and share the facts of donation. And then also I will be working with the highway patrolmen across the country to share with them the documents that they need to search for in the case of an accident, that being a donor card or driver's license, and then get those documents to the appropriate recovery agency. So then in turn, they can go and speak with the family at or near the time of death. And also I will be working with the Mississippi Medical Association and working with primary care physicians to ensure that they speak with their patients that they see on a regular basis and talk with them about donation and go ahead and get that ball rolling and get them to thinking about this before something is too late.
Recipient priority lists have become more and more controversial in the realm of organ donation. What do you feel about a donation? Should it be restricted to the local community first, where it comes from? Should it be on a list nationally? Whoever can get it? Where should the line be drawn?
I definitely like the system that we have now, which is on a region basis. And the reason I like that is because to keep a donor program open, whereas we have the University of Mississippi Medical Center that does perform transplants in Mississippi, to keep that facility open, we have to perform at least 75% of the transplants on the list that is in our state. And so it seems like if we went to just a nationwide basis, we would see a lot of those transplant centers closing. And that's simply just not very convenient for people who are on the list.
I'm going to ask a question about, you're an Ole Miss rebel.
I
And
am.
the Confederate flag flies proudly there. Now, how do you justify that with what we've had in South Carolina and...
Exactly. Actually, at Ole Miss, which is what we call the University of Mississippi, we have actually taken the rebel flag away and we have replaced it with the M flag, which is basically a large red flag with M and blue letters with white stars along the M. And so that's the one step that we've taken to show that we do not want to offend anyone. And in our state, former Governor William Witt composed a committee who is selecting a new state flag for us. And I'm very excited by that. By January of 2001, this committee should have some options for our state. And I'm really excited about that.
I'm sure you thought...
About the whole issue of transplanting animal organs into human beings in lieu of human organs being available.
Right. Xenotransplantation has just become into the spotlight. And I'm also very excited that they feel could be transplanted to humans from pigs, which is the study that I have seen. So I would really want to make sure that that virus would not take place and occur.
Do you have any ethical problems?
Not at all. Not at all. If it would save lives, I'm for it.
All right, excuse me, I'm sorry, being right on her question. Who's Dr. James Hardy?
Dr. James Hardy is from Mississippi and came from the University of Mississippi Medical Center, and he performed the first heart transplant in the country. Of course, Dr. James Hardy actually planted a baboon heart into a human, but that was the first transplant.
Christy, I'm from LSU, so a little rivalry there. But both Louisiana and Mississippi are often criticized for the quality of education that is provided there. Who do you think is at fault? Do you think educational decisions should be monitored at the national level, or should they be left to the local community or the state?
I think they should be left to the local community, and that's actually something that our state is focusing on. Yes, with the education, 6% of the population of Mississippi is illiterate, which is absurd, but that's one thing that our local community is taking a great stand on. We have started at the University of Mississippi the Barksdale Institute, which was founded by Jim Barksdale, who is the founder of Netscape in Los Angeles, California. And he has created this institute to teach teachers how to teach reading so that our state can become literate.
Christy, I'm sure.
I definitely think it should be left to the state level. I really do.
I'm sure you gave a lot of thought to what this interview was going to be like. What was the toughest question you thought that we would ask you, and then answer it for us?
The toughest question that I thought that you would ask me was to tell a joke. I honestly have to tell you that that's the one question. I cannot remember a joke to save my life. And so I thought, I'm going to get a joke, and I'm not going to know one. But you know what? I have remembered one. Can I tell it? Or you might not want me to tell it. But that would be the one question.
I want to apologize to you because when I asked you about boll weevil, I said the wrong thing. I've been to Pontotoc, Mississippi, but it was the Bodock Festival. Everybody thinks I've lost my mind, and I apologize for asking you. So that's why, because I when I said it, I do apologize because I knew it didn't make sense, but it was Bodock, and tell us about that, because that is exciting.
The Bodock tree, which I have even had to educate part of the state of Mississippi, they don't even know what a Bodock tree is. But that is, we have what we call the Bodock Festival, which is just the community of Pontotoc coming together as families to celebrate a great time each summer. And we have the Bodock Festival, which is in honor of the Bodock tree. And Pontotoc, the town where I'm from, has the largest Bodock tree in the country, and it's actually taller, larger circumference, but ours is actually taller. The Bodock tree has those green Bodock balls, or horse apple balls. You might be familiar with those knotty green, they almost look like a tennis ball. That's what a Bodock is.
What would you do about kudzu?
Kudzu? I think there's absolutely no...
Yeah, what do you want to tell your joke?
That I would just like to leave with you today is to share a story with you. When I was growing up as a child, my sisters and I, my mother made all of the clothes that we had just to save with finances, because growing up on a dairy farm, it's no secret there's extra money out there. And so she helped to make a lot of our clothes. And every year we got 2 pairs of shoes, one for school and then one for church. And I remember one year that the season also kind of reminds me of it. Fashion designer boots were the thing to have, just like this season. And I never will forget, as long as I live, going to my mother and asking her if I could have a pair of boots past my allotted, 2 pairs that I would have. And like I said, I'll never forget it. She looked me square in the eye and she said, no, it's just not possible. There's no money here. The farm is not made a profit or anything. There's no money here. So, I'm going to cry now. Last Monday when I walked into the convention center and saw the runway, I remembered those boots. Because that was actually just a personal goal, something that I wanted for myself. But the child of Miss America is different. I have the opportunity to save the lives of over 60,000 people. And you're here to help me with this. This is a platform I've lived with all of my life because of my father. And this is the reason I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Good luck.
Hello. I'd like to begin by letting you know that at a very young age, I had chosen my career path. I intended to become a minister. But by the time I was a senior in college, I knew that I had a stronger pull toward music, because I'd seen that music has the power to reach people in a very positive and meaningful way. And for the same reason, I came back to this pageant system, because I believe in the power of the Miss America crown. I believe the message I have about senior citizens deserves just such a vehicle. That's why I'm here.
You say you formed an alliance with the AARP. I'm not sure to do what.
Okay. My goal is to help get the word out about the abilities of the AARP. They're a wonderful resource to seniors, but most people don't know about that, so they don't access the resource. I'm here to get the word out about the AARP and the many other organizations that are here to help seniors.
What's the biggest challenge facing senior citizens today?
The biggest, when they're isolated, they don't have a reason to get up each day. They don't have a place to go when they do have problems, and they don't have a support system. That's the biggest problem.
What do you know about the senior games? Do you know anything about the senior games?
The senior games, I believe they're much like the Olympic Games, but seniors become involved. And the great thing is that it's a way for them to also network, avoid being isolated, and to stay active, physically active. Most people think that seniors aren't, but they are.
When
They
did your
can be.
interest start in senior citizens, older Americans?
The interest became very important to me a few years ago. My grandfather passed away, and I saw the problems that my grandmother was going through. She was overwhelmed by finances she'd never handled before. She was isolated, not involved in her community in any activities, and of course she was grief-stricken and very depressed. I discovered that her problems weren't just hers, but the problems of many seniors, so it became a very personal issue to me.
This is an election year, and there are two issues that the candidates are looking at that are very important to seniors. One is the prescription drug program, and the other is what to do with Social Security, latchbox or stock market. Can you comment on those two issues and let us know how you feel about them?
Certainly. First and foremost, I'm pleased to see that these are two major issues that each candidate is focusing upon. It hasn't been that way in the past. I'm very glad to see that seniors are coming to the forefront there. With regard to prescription drug coverage, I tend to lean toward Gore's plan, as do 52% of people according to Newsweek, because I believe that there are no private insurance companies who can make Bush's plan a reality. With regard to Social Security, I also tend to lean toward Gore simply for the fact that I don't think most people have the knowledge to wisely invest their money, or those who do, that'll be great for them, but it won't be great for everybody. So I'm interested in seeing all seniors brought up. I believe Gore is better in that regard.
This AARP, what if I said to you, I wouldn't give them a dime of my money because they're politically motivated and they don't go in the direction I want to go in?
I would say that's interesting because the AARP doesn't endorse political candidates. What they tend to do is get as much information as seniors in an understandable form. A lot of times people have trouble with politics because they don't understand what's being told to them. With my grandmother in the paperwork.
They may say they don't, but I can prove to you that they always go in one direction.
Okay. And what I would say is, okay, and you can search other organizations like the National Council on Aging. The AARP is not the only organization out there.
The AARP says that you have to be, I think, 55 to join. Do you think 55 is a senior citizen today?
Actually, the AARP starts sending out their cards when you turn 49 and a half. When you turn 50. Some of you have your cards already? Yes, yes. Do you have a card? Yes. What I say is, you're as old as you feel. I've met 80-year-olds who feel like they're 65 because they're really active and involved in their communities. And I've met 60-year-olds who unfortunately appear to be 80, 85 because they're not. So I think you're as old as you feel, and if people are willing to access senior resources at the time they turn 50, great. If they don't want to access them until they're 65 or 70, okay.
Do you think people should be forced to retire in certain occupations? What occupations would you say they should retire in?
I think, like I said, since age is such a variant based upon how you feel, I don't think a mandatory retirement age is necessarily a good plan for any occupation.
Why are Americans more guilty of shunting seniors to the side than other cultures?
Well, our media certainly puts an emphasis on youth. Everything is directed toward youth. Even this Miss America program this year has been geared toward a much younger audience, and that's what we mostly see. I think most people, the issue is they don't want to consider the reality of becoming old. They don't want to visit nursing homes. It's depressing because they don't want to live in a nursing home that looks like that. It smells like that. So they don't want to see it. They push it to the side. That's why I call my platform Spotlight on Senior Citizens. Let's put it back in the center of people's focus so they can't look away any longer.
What kind of help can you give to the families of seniors who are dealing with issues of Alzheimer's or life-threatening illnesses, and they can't take care of them anymore, and so they have to put them in some kind of residential care, but they're feeling guilt and anger and disassociation? What kind of help can be given to the families of those individuals?
Well, there are support groups in that instance through the Alzheimer's Association because no one's trained to be a caregiver. No one's trained to make those decisions. You're simply thrust in there by circumstance. So there are support groups. For those who are not in that situation yet, I urge them to consider the possibility. Because many of us are aging. Over half the people are going to need to consider other care besides in their home. And so I urge people to look at it in advance. Purchase long-term care insurance. I'm already speaking with my parents about this possibility because I want to know their feelings before they're incapacitated and they can't make that decision for themselves.
Do you support genetic testing for Alzheimer's research?
Absolutely. Now, with regard to the fetal tissue, the use of fetal tissue, it's hot in Omaha. Nebraska Med Center has dealt with a lot of problems from protesters. However, I feel like right now, if abortion is legal, yes, let's use that. Let's take all the options we can with researching Alzheimer's because strides are being made to solve this problem.
Do you think senior citizens will like the new Miss America pageant show, the new Miss America that we're going toward this this Saturday and the new Miss America image that we're working on?
I think they'll find it interesting. I'm curious. My 80-year-old grandmother is going to watch. My 87-year-old grandfather on the other side is going to watch. I don't think they'll understand a lot of the production numbers.
So will they believe that Miss America can be an advocate for them?
I believe so.
And why?
If it becomes me, there are a few other of the contestants who have platforms related to senior citizens. I hope that they'll see our passion. I hope that comes across in the telecast. That each contestant, no matter what her platform is passionate about that platform, and I hope that comes across no matter what age viewer.
Your doctoral.
Do you think it's right for the media to target young people, younger and younger people, at the expense of targeting people who are maybe early middle age or older? Do you think it's right for them to do that and to exclude a whole other set of Americans?
Of course not. I'm certainly against exclusion. I understand that they feel that's where the money's being spent and that's what's motivating their
Is
decisions.
the money really being spent there, one wonders? I mean, are
Right.
really
I wonder that as well, as TV aims that now toward even a preteen audience. I don't think these folks have that much money. They must, though, because that's what's going on and that's what we're seeing.
You have your doctorate in music?
No. I'm working on my master's degree in music. I'm halfway through.
Okay.
So if your ambition is to have a doctorate in music and therefore teach at a university, what do you say to those who say that those who can do and those who can't teach?
Right. Well, I have been on both sides of that. I've been a performer all the way through, coming up through high school and college, and I didn't have an education degree, and I was thrust into the setting of being a teacher because there's a music teacher shortage in Nebraska, as there is many other places. And I didn't think that I would find as much reward teaching as I had performing, but I did. Because I got to pass on along that joy that I found in music, and to help these students who don't have a niche find a niche in the performing arts. I believe that the best kind of teachers are those who can.
Well, it's clear that as Miss America, you will be looked to answer a lot of tough questions. And one that is probably going to come up pretty often is a woman's right to choose. Where do you stand on it?
I believe in a woman's right to choose.
What about the new controversial birth control pill, the RU-486? What do you think of that?
I feel that if it's a healthier option, I believe the FDA when they tell me that it's safe. I hope that it won't increase the number of abortions like most folks.
What best defines you as a woman?
The best definition of me as a woman is that the connection that I have to my family, I would say. It's not just me when you meet me. What you're meeting is the product of my parents, my two younger sisters, and speaking of being a woman, we have a girl house at my house. My dad is in the minority. So that's what defines me as a person. Woman or man, that's what defines me.
What do you think about that birth order thing? You're the oldest. Do you believe in all that? They say that the birth order issues. What do you think about it?
It's certainly interesting. It seems to have some merit. I've seen more times it's true than it's not. I'm sorry?
My older sister's the bossy one. Are you the bossy one of the
Probably
family?
so, sadly.
They look up to you, I'm sure they
There's a guy in here today and everybody upset on the skirt. Did you question your decision to wear pants?
Well, the reason I made this decision, so we can put the elephant, in the middle of the room and talk about it, is because the important thing to me is getting my message across to you. I don't want to worry about how I'm standing in a skirt, something like this. I want to worry about what I'm saying to you. So that's the reason that I wore pants. I hope you're all comfortable with it, because I am.
Miss America has to be a leader. What attributes does a great leader have?
A great leader can deal with any sort of people comfortably. I learned that as a car salesperson, actually. Every day my job was to go up and approach people who were suspicious of me and make them feel at ease. That's what I think is one thing an important leader has. An important leader has conviction, has integrity, and knows what they're talking about. If I don't have credibility when I'm discussing senior citizens' issues, what kind of a leader am I? I'm no spokesperson at all. That's a very important part of being a leader.
Now, I'm curious, you were a car salesperson. You
Correct.
want to be Miss America. Those are two professions that are somewhat maligned. What is it about
For
it?
hours so that in the evenings I could be at rehearsals and at performances. Now, it's very nice because I've had quite a variety of jobs that have enabled me to
Your time,
discover
I'm
different
sorry. Your time is almost up. We
Okay.
want to give you a chance to tell us what you would like to.
Okay. I would like to tell you a story of a woman that I met in a nursing home in Omaha. I go in and I sing for the folks, and after each song, this little lady in a pink sweater leaned over to me and she said, "God bless you. God bless you." I knew that he had, because he's given me this chance to speak on behalf of seniors and to touch them, to connect with them, and to help out if I can. Now, you also have that same option here today. It's very nice. Maybe you don't have the time. Maybe you're busy people and you can't get into the nursing homes, assisted living communities. You don't have the time. Okay. I understand that, but you can
sit next to that widow in the pew at the synagogue or the church who's always sitting by herself. When you go to the grocery store, you can take the fellow down the street who can no longer drive and take him with you. You can call your mother if you still have that chance. She's still around. And you have this very special opportunity today because you can choose a person as Miss America who's going to be a tireless spokesperson, a tireless advocate for seniors because it's so important. More and more of us are aging. People say kids are the future. I say, you know what? We're all aging. That's our future as well. So I am here because I believe in the power of seniors, not just to be takers of charity, but to be givers who have something still to offer that we need to access. This is a resource in society that we can make the most of. That's the challenge I put before you today.
Thank you. Thanks, Jill. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you very much. I want to tell you, first of all, that I am a person who embraces challenge. I've always embraced challenge. I've always joked that stress is my fuel. My parents have seen that most definitely. But in light of the circumstances, in light of the situation that has happened this past week, I see the role of Miss America as being changed dramatically, especially how I view it. I see her not only embracing her own platform issue and being a role model and being a leader, but I also see her as someone who is a comfort and an encouragement in this time. And as I was thinking about the role of Miss America as how I would take it on this year, I thought of it that it paralleled exactly what I was aiming with for my platform issue. I am providing hope. I am providing comfort, normalcy, and I'm rallying the hopes of the people that I'm working with.
And we should begin.
Thank you.
Miss Arthur, congratulations.
Thank you.
You indicate that your hobbies are reading biographies.
Yes.
What biography have you read in the last year that has been the most interesting and inspiring to you and that you'd recommend to us?
I read Bubbles, which is Beverly Sills' biography, and it was hysterical. She was such a normal woman, and that was so comforting to me to see how her life, how it spanned such an incredible range of everything. She was a great woman. Miss Kansas had some nice things to say about you, Kimberly, in her interview. Could you tell me something about her? Kimberly, we have a bond because we joke that we are drama queens. We both have a bond with music, and we are very dramatic people, very theatrically oriented. And she is, despite that theatrical bond that we have, she's such a real person, and that is so important for actors especially. I like what you said in your opening remarks about the role of Miss America. And traditionally, she's always been seen the next day on the front page out here in the ocean, on the beach, jumping up. What about going down to the site? I think that would be an extremely good idea. I would definitely embrace that. That's important. This is a different year. We've got to be flexible. I would be willing to do that. What would you say to the people down there that are waiting for the missing? I would say not to give up hope. That they need, in this time, it's okay to grieve. This is what I tell the metastatic patients that I work with, the terminal breast cancer patients. Do not give up hope. Believe in what you are trying to accomplish, and believe that the person that you are, your loved one, may come home.
What environmental factors are connected with your platform?
Environmental factors.
Yeah. Do you think that plays any role in connecting this disease with the environment?
In terms of biologically, chemically, even. I have heard that there are some connections. Most of them are myths, however, there's nothing that's been factual. No proven things so far. I have 5 girlfriends. I have lost 3 to breast cancer. 2, and one just a few weeks ago called me and said that she also has been diagnosed. Now, these are 2 friends, dear friends. How can I help them? How best can I help? People that ask me, how can I help someone who has just been diagnosed with breast cancer or who has just been diagnosed with terminal breast cancer, I tell them, listen, sit down with them and say, is there a time where I can come over and I can speak with you and you can speak to me? That's the number one thing that they need, is to communicate what's going on in their house and to have someone who's right there beside them or right inside them saying, I'm here to listen to what you want me to listen to. I'm here for you. If you are just a physical presence in their life, that's exactly what they need. If the cancer is terminal and it's imminent that they're going to die, would you recommend hospice care? Absolutely. That is one thing with this platform issue. What I am trying to instate is making sure that there are supportive services from the onset of their diagnosis all the way until hospice care intervenes. So I would absolutely partner with hospice and promote what they're trying to accomplish.
Ms. Harden.
Yes.
I lost my mother to breast cancer at 49, my mother-in-law to breast cancer. My sister's had breast cancer recently. My wife has had breast cancer. Is there anything that my two daughters can do other than the mammograms to increase the probability, of course, that they would not have breast cancer? Anything they can do with their lifestyle, whether are there any answers?
Lifestyle is extremely important. Unfortunately, our women are at risk despite what they do. There's very little that we can do to prevent besides early detection. I would say the lifestyle concerning that is extremely important. There's a link between obesity and how much fat intake we have and breast cancer. But really, it's a matter of holding on, hoping, praying. Is really what I would tell them.
Just with the lifestyle and what you eat, I'm told that I've read that things like cantaloupe and mango, those color fruits actually help prevent cancer. Have you done any study on that issue?
No, but I do know that any fruit, the 5-a-day policy is good for anything despite cancer, even if it is cancer. For anything, a healthy lifestyle is extremely important. Can you tell me about bioethics? Pardon my ignorance. I don't understand exactly what that's about. No, bioethics is basically, it's the study of controversial issues in the United States and in the world regarding medicine. And as a bioethicist, what I would do is take that knowledge of those issues from both points of view and present those either to medical professionals or the lay community, people that want answers for those issues. Things like stem cell research. President Bush has captivated, he's captured those bioethicists and said, I need your advice, I need some help. So that's essentially what I would be doing.
So what do you think of cloning?
I don't think that we are ready for cloning right now. I do not support cloning. It is taking over for natural things, and it's I don't agree with that.
What's going to happen anyway? So do you believe in the testing of animals for research?
It depends. I have conducted cancer research at Oregon Health Sciences University, and I have seen the benefits of animal testing as long as it is done in a balanced manner, and it's not done in a sadistic way at all, then I support it.
Suzanne Summers, some time ago, was in the news concerning her choice of unorthodox medicines for her cancer. What are your thoughts on that?
I support that, absolutely. Whatever is best for the patient, that is what they need to do, especially with metastatic patients. That's something, if we're not necessarily concentrating on the cure for them right now, there may not be a cure for them. But anything that will improve their quality of life is what they need to do. So I support exactly what she's doing.
Does your music tie in with that thought?
Absolutely. Music therapy is something that metastatic patients, any breast cancer patients, any patients in general, absolutely love.
Ms. Organ, do you have a speech coach?
I do not, but I am a speech communications major, so that does help.
Katie, will they go as jobs for those patients that have been determined that maybe they go into hospice care, that this is it, this is the end, which will maybe illegalizing drugs to make it less painful at the end?
Absolutely. Palliative care, which is pain management, is extremely important in the management of care of terminal patients. They need to have options as far as medically, pain management-wise, for medicine, that's extremely important. So yes, legalizing medicines for them would be a great thing. Prophylactically, I was just thinking about Harvey's situation. Could one of the alternatives be as drastic as it is to remove both the breasts when you have a serious history on both sides of your family of breast cancer? Do you recommend that?
Yes, that is. And I would recommend that only if that patient felt that she needed to do that. That is a personal decision that only she can make. It's very hard. We have such a connection with our breasts, women do. It's very hard. That is very much a personal decision.
I'm glad you raised that, because medicine Albany has a big connection to our breasts. And because of that, you know where I'm going with this. Because of that, we women have more a social connection to our breast than a physical or anatomical connection to it. What can you do to change the mores and attitudes in our advertising and on Madison Avenue about women and their breasts?
Making sure that women know that it is okay to know what their breasts are to them, to physically know, like you were talking about, anatomically what they are, rather than just how they are viewed by us on a social sweater. Yes, and a sweater is extremely important. But there are balances with that. Obviously, we do not want to present that to school children and girls and say, you need to experiment with your breasts. We need to make sure that we say this in a balanced manner. But I think it's going to take us a couple of years to bridge that gap.
What would you most like to meet, have dinner with, and get acquainted with?
Mother Teresa. I would have loved to have met her. And the reason why I have chosen her is because she came out of her shell, out of the human person that she was, and said, I'm going to abandon everything, and I'm going to care for those who need me.
What would you ask her?
I love that. I would ask her, where in the world did you get this strength? Besides God, besides her strength from God, what prompted you to do this? I would love to hear her answer to that.
Don't you think men are driving the need of women to feel they need their breasts?
Not necessarily. I think that clothes and looking good, women, we naturally were drawn to aesthetics and looking beautiful, so I don't think it's necessarily men. I think it's a balance of both.
When you say the teenagers, they're doing it all plastic surgery. And teenagers, so they can be models by the time they're 17.
It's trying to approach their self-esteem is the first thing, making sure that they know that they don't have to look perfect to be successful.
And our time's up. You still have 45 seconds.
Okay, thank you very much. One of the things that I was privileged to do in the course of my work with my platform issue was to observe a mastectomy, to observe a lumpectomy and biopsies and the surgical aspect of things. And in a very poignant time, I was able to observe one mastectomy. The surgeon, when he removed the breast from the woman, he handed it to me. I was the first person that he handed it to. And as I held that breast in my hand and I looked over at the patient, I realized this person is so much more than this disease. She's a person. And she needs me, an advocate on a national level, to take her needs and make them known. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kate.
Good morning.
I'd like you to just relax for a minute and picture, if you will, a young boy who loved to draw, being told that he has no talent, and you have Walt Disney. Picture a woman who believed in racial equality, being told and expected to move to the back of the bus, and you have Rosa Parks. Picture a fourth grader who wanted to be Miss America, a principal, an NFL star, and you have me. But despite that, I was told I'd never happen because of my own disability. But here I am, on the cuffs of a career towards being a principal, and I'm trying here competing for Miss America. Okay, so I didn't make it to the NFL, but I certainly did play boys tackle football in 8th grade. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here because I believe in persistence, perseverance, and I want to rally a nation to make your disabilities abilities as your next Miss America.
I have a question for you, Abby. Do you really think, just looking at you, if I was disabled in any way, I would say you're absolutely beautiful, you run track, you speak well, you're educated. How could disabled people look at you and identify with you because you're so far beyond what they are? I'm not so far beyond from where they are. Every day I have to make a choice to become a better person and not a bitter person. I stutter every day. I have problems with my neurons connecting. That's exactly what a learning disability is. The neurons in my brains do not connect, so therefore you have complications with being able to speak, phonic enunciation, other symptoms and disorders such as that. But I would want someone to reach out to me and say, if she can do it, I can do it. And if that can happen for her, then that can happen for me. And certainly, if you saw me in 4th grade, you certainly wouldn't be able to come to that conclusion than what you are concluding right now.
Could you prioritize your 2 or 3 biggest disappointments in life?
I don't really ever have disappointments. I think that has to do with how you interpret your success. My success always is determined by what I learn in life. And what I've learned in life is to always realize that there are no disappointments in life. You have to choose to become a better person and not a bitter person, certainly, and a champion in all your challenges. So I never have disappointments because I learn from them.
How do you feel about the recent decision concerning stem cell research?
I'm very disappointed. I'm not a supporter of this because I do believe in the right to life and the potential of every single person's right to life. So therefore, I believe conception happens when the organ is sperm meet. I am not supportive of stem cell research. I believe there are options also that we can still go for.
Could you give me a few positive things about homeschooling?
There are many positive things about homeschooling. I never was homeschooled, but certainly if we go ahead and rehabilitate our homes and our family lives within the schools and within the homes, if we have homeschooling, it's certainly going to be a positive aspect.
Well, if you were a principal, how would you deal with people who wanted to connect with your school even though they were homeschooled?
I would want them to get involved in our activities. I would hope that I would have activities that would allow them to be involved in whether athletic sports or in key clubs or whatever academics they like to be involved with. But certainly having the choice between those two is a personal choice. And I would want to be able to have our families be able to connect as far as family values and also within the schools. And if we have morals that are upright, then therefore we are able to be parallel together.
We are a very diverse culture in America, and with the recent events, a lot of the fallout has been the stereotyping, the profiling of our fellow Americans who are of descent. What would we, or what would you say to America if you were on television to avoid this, to prevent this?
Prevent cultural diversity?
No, to prevent the profiling of Arab Americans. Because we believe the perpetrators were of Arab descent.
Certainly, every generation has to deal with adversity. Every generation has to deal with an enemy threatening our freedom. And I want to encourage our culture to realize that when we judge another culture, we are threatening their freedom to be of the culture that they are. And we cannot continue to do that or even approach that in any way because then we are threatening their rights.
But what about their rights to sacrifice themselves for their God, which is essentially what these men on the airplanes were doing?
I'd have to question their God. And any God that would want you to sacrifice your life is not a loving and caring God.
Do we respect those rights, though?
Respect their right to choose how they want to live their lives, but I certainly can't respect it personally.
So you find there's no way you can balance the two?
Balance the two between respecting their rights and
your personal faith and theirs.
I respect their right to choose their faith. But I don't understand what you're trying to say there.
I was just making the point of you were saying we need to respect their right, and they chose their right was to sacrifice themselves and those people to their
right was not to sacrifice those people. There was never a right that they ever have the right to choose for another person. They do have the right to choose their own faith, but they never have the right to take another life.
Could you describe some of the positive and negative feedback that you received from Capitol Hill with your recent lobbying effort?
For those of you who don't know, Individuals with Disability Education Act is what I work on for funding for this Special Education Act. And the problems with this area is there's a lot of different acts and amendments within this that causes people to have concern about disabilities and also the behavior that disabilities can cause within our schools. We have children that do act out. And do we fully fund this? Do we take federal government money to fully fund a child that possibly could act out? That is something that many U.S. senators have a problem funding. But we have to realize that these children, just because they're acting out, that the reason why they are acting out is because they're not getting the resources that they need. And if they are able to have the resources they need, they no longer are being neglected. And from that, they can go ahead and be rehabilitated and work in society and be productive.
Can you sign I Love America?
Yes, I can. It's America. America will also be this, depending on what interpretation you want to go with. There's American Sign Language, there's English Sign Language, there's different interpretations, but for anyone of you that do have sign language, I just said I love America, and I certainly do.
Should sign language be on every television program?
I would be full support of that because there's a culture of those who are not able to relate to us. And if I'm a full supporter of being able to relate and identify with any person, and once you're able to identify with another person, you're able to reach a connection. And a connection can equal growth. And I think we should have included into our society the deaf culture.
Virtually all the studies show that the thought in America is that Congress is going down, down, down. The values with morals, they're just a slot above used car lot dealers. How would you respond to those studies? And would you say they're accurate, not accurate?
First of all, I want to see where those studies are coming from. If you're going to evaluate any situation, teachers are being role models and they're being evaluated constantly. Miss America is always being evaluated constantly. There's always going to be critics. But first of all, you have to understand where that's coming from. We are trying to reach another standard. And anytime we challenge another person to reach the next level of moral or ethics, that is something I promote because you reach the next level. And that next level always needs to be reached individually and also in whatever career you're going into. But I've met with U.S. congressmen, I've met with U.S. senators, and I love them. I'm so proud of their professionalism and their competency to be able to relate with another person and be able to reach that next level of what we're trying to reach for as Americans.
Should Gary Condit seek re-election?
Excuse me?
Should Gary Condit seek re-election?
That's his choice. I don't think, first of all, I wouldn't be able to vote for him, but I would probably not vote for him because I believe that he did violate being able to just tell the truth. And I would always want to encourage my students or my teachers or whoever I'm working with as a future principal to tell the truth.
If you were in Afghanistan, what would you tell those people? What is America? Who are Americans? What are we like?
I would tell them that we have a resilient spirit. We're able to rebuild ourselves. And I know personally that adversity has been my companion my entire life, and it's certainly been a good buddy of mine. But I've just realized that no matter what, we are resilient. We have a spirit inside of us that doesn't want to fail. And life certainly gives us the reasons to fail. But we have to find the excuses to succeed always, and that's where Americans are.
Within your peer group, with this crisis that we're going through, you grew up at a time of peace and prosperity. Do you think there's a fundamental change going on with some of your peers right now?
Certainly. I have a brother right now that is a U.S. Marine. He's a sergeant. We're all going through a major change right now, a transformation of living this wild apple pie dream and realizing that freedom can be threatened, and we have to make a choice to stand up for ourselves.
What about affirmative action? A bunch of states have done away with it. Do you think that's appropriate, that the best person should get the job now regardless of minority status, or do you think minorities still need to be helped along?
I believe minorities need to still be helped along just as the disabled are, because there are people who are intolerant. We have people who don't respect other people, and we need to have laws that protect them always.
You mentioned Rosa Parks on the bus, and I lived in Boston during the busing. You probably weren't born then. Of your generation, are there any repercussions of what happened in the 70s?
I'm not very aware of them, if there are. I think there's still the spirit of being able to relieve Rosa Parks, and that could possibly be a reaction from that. We believe in racial equality, and I certainly love Boston, but we also believe in cultural diversity, and that's apparent throughout, I believe, the nation, especially in Boston.
What's president of the Civil Rights Team? I never heard of that. What is that?
I was president of the Civil Rights Team. We were a group that believed in being able to respect equality. No matter what cultural creed or culture you came from, we believed in respecting that. We got together with different organizations, whether they were Jewish or Catholic or whatever religion or denomination you came from. We respected those cultures and learned about them, and then took that information and brought it into our schools to aware them.
So you met and then disseminated the information?
Yes, and I was a leader of that. And it was a great responsibility. I was voted into it. I never thought I had a shot. I've always had much of a servant attitude. I've always believed in just being in the background, behind the stage, working for other people. And I guess they loved that idea, and they took that and they said, you need to be our leader. So that's how I got that position.
Does Babe Ruth have a curse on the Red Sox?
I don't know Red Sox fan. I love I love the White Sox, but I think we do have some of them cursed. Lamar has not been doing too well. I'm a little disappointed in that.
You also have the 100 awards in track. That is awesome.
Thank you. I have been since 4th grade competing in track. I certainly have always loved to run. There's been 400 awards, but there's one in particular that's always stood out in my mind. It's something that I was kind of called upon. In 4th grade, I was running the only 4th grader on the 5th grade team. And I was running the 800-yard dash. And I was in second place for the first 400 yards. And she had to be at least 50 yards in front of me. And I was just, oh my gosh, there's no way I could possibly catch her.
I have to interrupt you. You can finish or you can wrap up.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I'm actually going to just finish and tell you a little bit about myself and a little story that had come from my heart. Growing up with a learning disability, I needed a hero, and I needed someone that was going to be my hero, which is what I hope to be to other people, and I continue to be. Whether I'm going to be Miss America or not, I certainly won't be that. But I needed a hero, and Wonder Woman was the woman for me. I used to go to my backyard, and I have a Dixie Cups on, and I used to kind of be transformed into this icon. And let me tell you, spinning didn't get me too far, but certainly a quote that was in my speech pathologist room did. It was by Robert Kennedy, and it said, "Some men see things the way they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not. And I'm dreaming of being Miss America, and I ask you, why not?" Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to share with you this morning a quote from one of my favorite authors. It's Dr. Seuss. It's called "Oh, the Places You Go." And he says, "You have brains in your head and feet in your shoes, and you can steer yourself any direction that you choose." And that's proven to be true in my own life time and time again. When I entered my very first pageant just in January, I had no idea the journey that I was beginning. And I've always known that my life has been leading to some significant event. I just never knew exactly what it was. And now with the opportunity to participate in the Miss America organization, I can see an extraordinary journey unfolding. And if I were chosen to be Miss America, I would have the opportunity to broaden my platform volunteerism to a national level. And I believe that I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and go to work.
Thank you. Congratulations, Miss Tennessee, for being here.
Thank you very much.
Why don't you tell the panel, judges, why you think you're the candidate to be elected Miss America?
Okay. Well, I'm very used to hard work and juggling responsibilities. In school, I have supported myself through school. A lot of that is through scholarships, but I have worked very hard. And I've had a full-time job since I've been in school. Sometimes I work 2 jobs during the summer to catch up. And I'm used to that. I'm used to juggling responsibilities. And I think another thing that helps me to relate to people on an everyday basis, I'll even tell you a story that happened to me last night. I'm still on a level with everyday citizens. I've not been doing pageants for a long time. I'm very new to the Miss America organization. I've learned so much about it and been so very impressed. But even last night, I was in a workout room in the hotel. It's a funny story. And I ran into a lady who is traveling in a yacht from Maine to Miami. She's moving down. Very long trip, but she stopped in Atlantic City overnight. And she just started talking to me. I was in my workout clothes. She didn't know who I was or what I was there for. And she just started talking to me. She said, "Now, where is that school?" I had on my university sweatshirt. I said, "It's in Tennessee. I'm here from Tennessee, and just thought I'd stop down here to work out." And she told me who she was. She is a fitness trainer for Gloria Estefan and some other celebrities. So I was very impressed about it. And we started talking about what she does and how she lives in Miami. And we just had a long conversation. And she seemed to be very impressed. I told her I'm a double major and maintain a 4.0, and just in our conversation, I was very real with her, and we kind of got to know each other. And finally she said, "Now, what are you doing in Atlantic City from Tennessee?" And I said, "Well, I'm here with the Miss America organization." I still didn't even say that I was competing. And I said, "I'm just here with I have an interview in the morning, and I was just coming down to work out." And she said, "You mean you're competing? What do you say?" I said, "Well, yes, I'll be competing in the morning." And she said, "Does that mean you're Miss Tennessee?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am Miss Tennessee." And she still, with respect, said, "Do you know what the people in the entertainment system think about you?" And I said, "You know what? I thought the same thing just in January. I'm very new to this. Let me tell you what the Miss America organization has done for me. If I win this, or even if I don't win, I leave with at least a $5,000 scholarship. And I've worked my way through school. And I think that's incredible what they do for young women. I just told her my own experience, how I have learned so many skills just from these 9 months. interview skills, speaking skills, all the opportunities it's given me. And I think that I can also do that, help promote from this American organization.
Thank you. Ms. Tennessee, your former governor, Governor Alexander, who later became Secretary of Education, when he was running for president in 1996, said that we should abolish the Department of Education. How do you feel about that, and why would he make that kind of statement, in your opinion?
I don't know exactly what his reasoning would be on that, but I'm an avid supporter of the education system. And even in my own program with volunteerism, I would like to promote, with the Board of Education, a system to promote service-oriented learning. And it promotes children in learning how to be a volunteer at an early age. And that's something I'm so avidly a supporter of. And it has actually worked in Tennessee. They've implemented that in a few schools, in public and private, and it has wonderful results. So I would love to work with the Board of Education. I'm very much a supporter.
Why did Gore lose the last presidential election? And why did he not carry Tennessee?
Interesting question.
2 questions.
Well, I guess it was very close. But it was very difficult. Very crazy time in America, it seemed. Now it's even more. I'm very proud of our president that we have today, and I'm a very avid supporter of him now. The reason why he lost Tennessee, I guess, because it's always been a strong Republican state. I really don't know. It was really interesting when I heard the results of that. But I think it was very close. But
why did he lose the presidential in your mind?
In my mind? I think he's a wonderful man. I think both of them could have done the job, but I guess that the American population as a whole has come together underneath Bush. At first it was quite a question, I guess. But
what do you think about the hanging chads?
Oh, what a ton of confusion in America, I felt. I think that the part of the voting system needs to be very much corrected, and hopefully that will never happen again. But it's just a little glitch in the system that just didn't work.
What do you think of Gore winning the popular vote, but losing the election?
I know that can cause a lot of chaos and a lot of problems in America to feel like we voted as the population for this man, why can we not? But I think that the system that the government came up with a long time ago is the way to go. I agree with Electoral College, but again, it can cause problems. But I think with this, everything that's happened in the past week has really united the nation underneath Bush. I know we have an 83% has said, yes, we do want to go to war, yes, we do agree with you, and I think that's wonderful. We can move past that.
Stephanie, it says here you've worked with assistants for unwed mothers.
Yes.
Are kids still having kids today, or do you see that the way you are?
Well, I understand that has gone down just a little bit. But yes, of course, it does happen today, quite a bit. But what we did, we put together an organization and invited everyone in the community to buy something that they can. I know as college students, sometimes that's difficult, but everyone bought a pacifier or maybe some rifles or just whatever they could do to help these young women who have chosen to take care of this child and keep it and do what they can to support it. But as a community, we came together to help them.
Two-part question. You have ambition to receive or get in and receive a Harvard MBA?
Yes.
Would you assess your probability of getting into Harvard, number one? And then number two, you'd like to be long-term CEO of a corporation, and you've probably been reading and following the last 5 years obscene salaries and profits to the CEOs in America. Companies losing tens of millions of dollars, and yet the CEO and their boards and their cronies are giving them additional raises so that they're making tens and tens of millions of dollars. And of course, you might be one of those CEOs in years to come. Could you just respond to those two questions?
Yes. It's always been a dream of mine to go to Harvard. The president of my college today has taught there a little bit and attended there, and he takes time to go up there and teach. So it's always been very interesting to me, and it's been really a goal that I've set for myself to go to Harvard and to also be a CEO one day, because I'm one of the only ones to have graduated with a degree. My father has just gone back to get his doctorate, so he has been a role model for me to go on with my education. My education is very important to me. And I've studied up on Harvard, and I do a lot with case studies. And I'm very interested in doing that. And I'm interested in the Boston area also. So I'm very excited to try. And if it doesn't open, if our door doesn't open, I'm willing to go wherever else opens up. It's not the ultimatum where I have to go to Harvard, but I'm very interested in going there. I know that it's very difficult to be accepted but a role that I've had many opportunities and that I might have the scholarship money to attend. And also as a CEO, I feel it as an opportunity to influence lives. And as a leader, as it said in the program book, I'm not sure if you've seen that, but a quote that I've always said to myself is, as a leader, to be an effective leader, I am first a servant. And that's the way that I always lead. I never ask anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And I'm not interested in the money necessarily, just in the influence that I would have of the people that would be under me.
Would you serve in the military?
I most definitely would. If I were called, I would be more than happy to.
Your father is a minister. Tell me, what is a PK?
A PK
and the difference between religion and spirituality?
Yes. Well, I'm a preacher's kid, and I've been a PK. A lot of people ask me how that's influenced my life, and luckily we had people in our church that never put pressure on me to be watched all of the time. However, I've had wonderful role models out of my church to influence my life. And the second part of your question?
The difference between religion and spirituality.
Religion and spirituality. What I've been taught growing up, religion is a lot of tradition, and maybe learning to work a lot of, and memorizing. Do you see what the different things? And spirituality is more a personal relationship, or your inside and your being and knowing your relationship, whatever your faith may be.
Stephanie, if I got to your platform, you mentioned Tennessee volunteers, and there are huge volunteers at the Alamo protecting against Santa Ana. And you talk about the War of 1812. It looks like he got about 15 times the call that he asked from volunteers. Why were they volunteering? What was the cause that was so important in that war?
Well, I see that reflecting again today. I thought it was very interesting when I saw Tuesday. Everyone is ready to go. Everyone's ready to volunteer. Everybody is ready to volunteer in any way that they can. That's why I'm so excited about my platform, that I can go ahead and move on. And I've been involved in so many different organizations already. I'm ready to do even more.
But in the War of 1812, what were you rallying against?
It was against the British and all of that together. Governor Blount called for Tennessee. And I guess it was just the spirit. I don't know exactly what the reasoning was, but he had so much patriotism, I feel like. And that's what we're seeing again today. And I'm so proud of that.
Do you ever get frustrated?
Frustrated? Not often. My executive director was just saying to me the other day, he said, Stephanie, nothing really seems to fill you up. I don't know what it is about you. But I guess just little things sometimes, maybe a run in my hose and I realize I didn't pack any extras. That's very frustrating.
What are your weaknesses? We all have strengths and weaknesses.
Well, my biggest weakness is pizza. First of all, I'm not very good with dieting. I have a very hard time with that. So that's one of my weaknesses.
What weaknesses do you think you might have in regard to being Miss America, as you know the job?
Yes. Well, honestly...
So, our time is up. I have to come back.
Oh, is it already? Oh, I was fast. Well, I'll just close by reiterating. I'm used to working very hard. I'm used to juggling responsibilities. I've maintained a 4.0 since the 3rd grade. Double major, full-time student, working 20 to 30 hours a week, practicing the piano for 15 hours a week, and being the president of a social service club and an honor society in my school, extracurricular events including football, and volunteering whenever the opportunity is available. So I believe that I'm ready to handle the privilege and the opportunity with the title of Miss America. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, this Saturday, when viewers tune in, I think there'll be a lot of people in my hometown that are surprised to see me here. As elementary school girl, I was called blind by my teachers. And as a performer who is legally blind, and when doctors told me that I would never be able to be a baton twirler. But because I was forced at an early age to rise above those low expectations, I believe in choosing my own label, and I've chosen the label of resilience. However, I've seen that too many of our young people are labeled at-risk problem children, just as I was. And I believe that behind every problem lies purpose. I'm ready to talk with you about my experiences. I've been able to ground emotion while speaking to her, so I'm very excited to be here today.
Well, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to know what specifically brought you to choose United Against Crime as your platform.
Well, I began working in the area of crime prevention at the age of 15. I was asked to be on a statewide commission that focused on reducing crime, and I found that there was too many individual efforts that were going on. There was no coordinated, comprehensive approach. And so I founded a youth program called America Can, stands for America's Children Achieving Now, and have really worked to build a coalition in my community and just across the country with different youth-serving agencies that unite together to reduce crime and to increase the opportunities available to young people.
You said District of Columbia.
Yes.
As I'm sure you know, the United States has more people incarcerated than any other country in the world, including China, any Russia, any other country. Something's not working. Something is not right. Do you have ideas on that?
I have an idea. I think that a lot of that is that we're trying to incarcerate ourselves out of a problem that is largely social and educational in nature in terms of where the root of the problem comes from. I think that we need to focus more on prevention. A lot of the people that are in the adult system first came through the juvenile justice system. So they're not getting the services that they need, they're not getting the education, the vocational training, and the role modeling, counseling services that they need to make better decisions so that they do not end up in the adult prison system.
And why do you think that is, that they're not getting it? Is it financial, that government units aren't spending the money?
Well, I think in the juvenile justice system there's a couple of problems. Number one, there's not a coordinated approach. We don't utilize the services of the community in terms of investing in kids. Secondly, I don't think that the juvenile justice system has been prepared to handle some of the cases that they're getting today, and so there really hasn't been the focus and the attention that's needed.
You've been in the pageant before, haven't you?
I have. This is enough before.
How have you changed personally? Just this last year, what makes you different this year than previous years?
I think every year I grow, just as in daily experiences. I've been able to continue to work with young people in juvenile detention facilities and gangs, and even those that live in model homes. But I also think that right now I work for the National Crime Prevention Council, and I've been able to serve as a spokesperson for the Crime Prevention Coalition of America. And being able to travel across the country to do trainings, to organize national press briefings with people from the White House and the Departments of Justice has really, I think, prepared me to be here today.
Do you advocate children being tried as an adult for, say, murder?
So murder? Well, in general, I do not advocate the juvenile transfer provision where we transfer kids to the adult system. My senior thesis when I graduated college this year was on the juvenile transfer provision. And my main reasoning is because I think that when we put kids in an adult system, they're more likely to commit suicide, they're more likely to be sexually assaulted, they're more likely to be abused. They're also more likely to learn how to be better criminals. One day they may come out and they may have to live next door to you or to me. And I think that they need to be in a setting where they will get the services that they need to become better citizens.
District of Columbia, I've got a couple of questions concerning your platform. First of all, how long have you had the platform?
Well, I started working in this field when I was 15. I started my youth program when I was 17. So I'm 22 now. So it's not, I think my platform really chose me. I didn't make this my platform. It was just a natural extension of the work that I was already doing. And I was able to do more on a national level. I'm working with a program called the National Youth Network, an organization that I helped start, and now I work for them on a full-time basis.
When you say that, well, what kind of budget do you need in order to accomplish your objectives?
I found that, a lot of people have been very supportive. The United Against Crime Coalition that I've started with several different national agencies, a lot of them will help support me to travel or to fund basic materials, pens, paper. The National Crime Prevention Council provides me with the Little McGruff to give out to kids. So people have been very supportive. I don't have an official account set up, but I really haven't had too much of it.
When you say that you have lobbied, you want to continue lobbying members of Congress, which congressmen have you talked to and which ones do you seek to lobby?
I've talked to several. I've worked with Senator Kennedy's office. Senator Petri from Wisconsin was one that I specifically had to talk to regarding the Younger Americans Act, which I mentioned in my paperwork. And it was very encouraging to go and talk to him because he had huge reservations about supporting the bill because of the amount of money that's required. To know that 2 weeks later his office called and said that he would now be a sponsor behind the bill was very, very encouraging. In the future, I've been working with the National Collaboration for Youth, and so I'm working with them to see which senators and legislators we do need to target. But in light of everything that's going on, I'm sure that some of this will be put back burner for very long.
Ms. District of Columbia, you've heard the phrase taxation without representation.
How do you feel about the District of Columbia and state rights? I believe the district should have home rule. I believe that D.C. residents care most about their issues, and they should be the ones that decide what happens to them. They should be the ones that decide their laws. What prevents that? I think it's just the way that the district is structured. We have federal institutions that are in the district, and so the line between the city council and also the federal government is just so hard to separate. And I'm not sure if we will ever have it, but I hope that we do. Marshawn, please help me get in the mind of a criminal. I've lived in, I've worked in New York for a little over 2 years, and in that time I've had my car broken into, my purse stolen, and my golf clubs taken. And I understand why people maybe didn't like color crimes against companies, because it's not personal, but it amazes me that these people have the audacity to take personal things of mine that I've worked hard for and earned, and they feel like they can just take them. What is going on in their minds? I understand how you feel, someone who's been victimized of crime as well, but I think that people who have a lack of options resort to the worst option or something that gives them the most immediate gratification. Those who don't have hope for the future, and that sounds very general, but those who don't necessarily see how their life can be productive later on, all they can do is focus on the moment. And if that means breaking into your car for your purse or stealing something from your person, I think that that's the most immediate gratification that they can find.
Marshawn, your father is an air traffic controller, therefore you may be even more knowledgeable than the average person. Yes. We spent billions of dollars, our government, billions of dollars, CIA, to find out what's going on in the world, and yet this catastrophe happened, and now they're thinking it's been in the planning for 3 years, possibly 5 years, 100 people or more. Do you think our government has let us down? I don't think our government has let us down. I have a lot of faith in my government, especially right now. I think that there are errors and shortcomings in our current system, and those need to be remedied. I think that air traffic control needs to be able to work more closely with the armed services in terms of being able to provide a coordinated response if something like this were to ever happen again. I know that as soon as I was watching television, and as soon as I saw one of the planes hit the World Trade Center, first person I called was my father, and I said, Daddy, how can this happen? And he didn't know either, so I think that this doesn't happen again.
You say you're going to be U.S. Attorney General. Do you always think that big?
I do. I didn't always think that big. What I do now, I mentioned in my opening that people call me dumb. My teachers call me dumb. And that was a stigma that I had to work very hard over several years to overcome. I met Janet Reno when I was 17 years old, and to be able to talk to her, just like I'm talking to you today, was a tremendous feeling, and to see her compassion and her commitment to not only making tough decisions, but to have concern for children in America really inspired me to want to be her. And I told her, I said, I want your job when I grow up. And she said, well, why not the president? So, and I think Attorney General would do just fine.
Should she run for office?
She should. I'm very excited that she's running for governor in the state of Florida. She has my full support. It's unconscionable to me that a teacher would call a student dumb. Did you tell your parents, and have you seen those teachers since, and confronted them on this? At the time, I did not tell my parents, because at 6 years old, I didn't know that that's what I should do. My brother and I were one of 2 African-American students in our school, and I remember being 6 years old and watching my brother being dragged down the hall, crying, being taken out of his classroom. I didn't know, even at the time, to tell my parents that. My parents were very concerned, but I have been able to go back to that school, and I have been able to talk to those teachers, to the principals, and also, most importantly, to the children who are in that school now. I'm glad that the school is more diverse, but I'm glad it made me a stronger person. You think it was racially motivated? I think a lot of it was. I can see in retrospect that it was, but like I said, it's made me a better person.
What happened to the stock market yesterday, and also what holiday did we begin celebrating yesterday?
Yesterday, from my understanding, the stock market plummeted quite a bit. But today, my understanding is that it has gone up. Now, I could be wrong, but I know that we're in the middle of a Jewish holiday. I want to make sure I get the right one. I think it's Yom Kippur.
And so the market's down 1 or 2%, or 8 or 10%, or do you have any idea?
I think it's fallen about 7%, and they've estimated that it's going to be between 5 and 10, so you're right where they were estimating.
What's your thinking on the death penalty, part 1 and part 2 is, Do you think it's a deterrent to crime?
Well, I'll answer the second part first. I do not think that it's a deterrent to crime. I am not in favor of the death penalty as it currently stands because I've seen too many mistakes made. I know the governor in Illinois has placed a moratorium around the death penalty because of the mistakes. And the death penalty is so final, we can't afford to make those kind of mistakes. I really think that an eye for eye really only leads to more blindness. So I'm not in favor of the death penalty.
We'll finish with this section. You can continue about your point.
Well, there is something I'd like to share with you. Yesterday, I got a phone call from a juvenile detention facility that's maybe 5 miles from the Pentagon. And they told me about a young girl named Brandy who needs a mentor. And it made me think about how I really could have been her or one of the kids that I mentored in a juvenile detention facility. But I didn't know that at 10 years old, my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Eager, would give me the reason that I want to be Miss America. He taught me that I do not have to succumb to their expectations. Neither does Brandy, and neither do the 12 million American children who grow up in neighborhoods where poverty and crime is a way of life. I believe that we can create safer communities. I'm here and ready to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you tonight.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrea Plummer. This past year has been such an exciting one for me. Originally, I was living in New York City where I was auditioning and performing as a theatrical dancer. And while I did that, I also applied for and selected medical school. So I will be attending Albany Medical College after my year of service. This past March, I was sworn into the Air Force by my father, who is a former Air Force pilot. And ultimately, I'll be serving as a physician in the Air Force. Right now, I'm a commissioned second lieutenant. And I'm very excited that I have the opportunity to combine my career goals with serving in the military. So I'd love to talk about that or anything else you have to ask me this morning.
Well, Miss New York, congratulations.
Thank you.
If you had been in New York City this past week instead of here, what would you have done as Miss New York?
The first thing I would have done was to, as soon as the environment down there in the southern part of the city, since I live in Manhattan, I live up in the 86th and East 2nd Street, which is very far from Manhattan, but I would have immediately, as soon as the area was safe, tried to get down there and just said, what can I do? Can I call people, try to get people to donate for the rescue workers, and just offer support any way that I could, whether it was giving blood or, like I said, just rallying the city, which it seems like it did on its own, and I'm very proud of that.
Should the World Trade Center be rebuilt as it was?
I think it should be. I have the highest hopes that it would be. I think it's such a symbol of our power as a nation and as a city, and it's so much pride in the hearts of those who live in New York City. But I know everyone that lives there, I think, wants it to be rebuilt.
What about the problem that people with disabilities are unable to get out of the building at all?
I think that it's definitely a problem, and it hits close to home, too, because multiple sclerosis patients are disabled many times and end up in wheelchairs. And I think that all of the buildings down in that area or across the city and state need to be stricter about the regulations and making sure that there are other ways, other accessible ways, whether it's some sort of apparatus on the staircase that will enable these people to get out because their lives are also in danger.
How do you think Mayor Giuliani's doing?
I think he's doing a wonderful job right now. When this all happened, he was under so much stress as well, and I think he has really showed a lot of strength. He and Governor Pataki came together immediately and offered support for the city, and again, he just exemplified, I think, what a leader he's been in the past 8 years.
Can you define, just to piggyback on that, what leadership is from your perspective?
Leadership to me is somebody having a stance, whether it's on an issue or coming forward with a lot of strength. I think it's somebody who, such as Mayor Giuliani said, this is not going to stop this city. We have fought so hard to make the city so much better in the past 8 years, even since he entered office. And I think it's saying, this will not stop me, and rallying people. And that's where he really excelled this time.
Can you tell me if you and your father, both being of our great American Air Force, have discussed what we might do as an American, as a military in going into Afghanistan? As you know, we were very successful with Kosovo, primarily because of our Air Force. Have you discussed with your father what the strike might be like if we do go to Afghanistan?
Well, we haven't had the opportunity to really sit down and talk about it. He was the very first person I called when I saw in the news what was happening. And since he is a pilot, it really, it hit home for him, not only that he was in the Air Force, but that he could have been flying an airline plane as well at some point in his life. But I think that we agree that this has to be taken care of. And as far as the way the airstrikes go, I'm not sure exactly what process we're going to take, because I don't think that in this situation necessarily airstrikes or bombings of that sense will necessarily wipe out the problem of terrorism. And I look forward to talking to him a lot about that this week when I see him tomorrow.
Do you think it's really correct that flight surgeons and docs going in the Air Force get direct commissions? You don't have to go through basic or officer candidate school in any way, where every other person in the Air Force had to go through that. Do you think that's fair?
I've had a lot of people tell me that it's not fair, and I understand because there are a lot of people that work really hard for their commissions. I am fortunate, however, I feel like the Air Force has a need for physicians, and they have to give away or allow an opportunity for people maybe that have graduated from the university, who have a college degree, and it's a pre-medical degree, to have an into the Air Force. And the direct commission, which I did through the Health Profession Scholarship Program, is the best way for them to do that, and they can recruit. The bottom line is there is a need in the Air Force for physicians, and we have to find a way to get them in.
You're applying for the job now, Miss America. And these people up there are going to make the decision as to your qualifications, your background, etc. We have your file, and it's very impressive. But why don't you tell us in your own words why you believe that you're the person to become the next Miss America?
I wish I could have about 10 minutes to tell you all the reasons why I think that I could do this job. I just feel like I've had a very diverse background. I've traveled around a lot of the country. I had one experience where I got to be a national spokesperson for a self-esteem program, and it gave me the opportunity to travel to schools and programs and serve as a role model. And I've taken that experience throughout all of college, and I've always lived my life by example. And I think that's the most important qualification that a Miss America should have, being willing to lead by example. Furthermore, I am truly devoted to my platform of multiple sclerosis awareness. It has been such a prominent part of my life for 9 years that I feel like I have a really strong understanding of what MS patients and their families and their neighbors all go through. And I think I could really use that to promote awareness and raise money for that cause.
What about stem cell research? How do you feel about that, Andrea?
I am in support of stem cell research, not only because of the way it can benefit MS patients, but also because as a future doctor, I'm strongly supportive of ways in which we can find cures for all the illnesses out there. I would hope that, I think we are going to revisit the conflict over the issue in the future, because I don't know that the existing stem cell lines will be enough to give us the diversity that we need to find these cures.
You've traveled to many countries. You know that in the last 12 months between Arafat and the Israelis, they put a lot of negotiations together. A lot of Americans thought that there was going to be peace. There wasn't. Arafat did not agree. Fast forward 10 years. Not what you want to see, but can you give us your best prognostication as 10 years from now? What are those countries going to look like? What are the Palestinians and the Israeli? Dilemma going to look like 10 years from now?
I'd love to say, like I said, what I hope to see happen. I just feel like the conflict there is so deep-rooted in religious beliefs and in the pride of each side that I think it's going to take longer than 10 years for there to be absolute peace over there.
Where did you dance in New York?
I took classic steps in their ballet department. They have the strongest classical ballet area, and then I also took a few hip-hop classes at the Broadway Dance Center. However, I'm not a hip-hop dancer. And I went to all the auditions, whether it was a Broadway show or just a theatrical showcase, and was able to perform in some of those. However, I'm not really a singer, so as soon as we got to the singing part, I oftentimes went out the room.
As a graduate of Mr. Jefferson School, should Thomas Jefferson be held up as an icon that he is at the University of Virginia in light of what we know about his life personally?
Sure.
Now?
I think that he can be compared to many of the figures in our life, in our society today. He is held as such an icon at the University of Virginia because of his leadership and his ability and his willingness to really step out and speak out for a cause of our independence. He was the author of our Declaration of Independence, and that is where, as a university where he found most of our pride. And his just everyday ideas of leadership and also of just creating a society that fosters a strong education and really fosters people getting along and just basically a freedom of ideas and thought. That's what we find is so wonderful about him. So I do believe that he should be held up.
How should I, as an American descendant of slaves, feel about him?
I would understand that you would not have the same esteem for him, and his shortcomings as an individual, whether or not there is definite, I know there is definite proof, show us that he really is, while he is a wonderful leader and has brought about a lot of wonderful advances in our society, he also lacks, he's human, is I guess the best way to say. And as a descendant of slaves, I can understand anger, and so he took advantage of someone, and that was wrong. And if that's what we were holding him in high esteem for, then that would be completely wrong. And we were just mainly respecting him for his own ideas and beliefs.
When I went to the Jefferson Memorial and I read all the stuff that Thomas Jefferson wrote, I was thinking, if he ran for office today, no one would elect him. The problem with Thomas Jefferson's idea is they weren't following what he was thinking, that our country's probably off.
I think in a way our country, I was just reading an article the other day about how Jefferson and Adams and their beliefs are really being revisited with the biography of Adams. I feel like our country has moved away from his original ideas of independence and freedom, and that could be why when you look at what he says, it just sounds so foreign to us. And that's why I think it's wonderful that we're starting to revisit our founding fathers, their views. And I think this conflict has really brought us together as a nation into thinking all of this freedom that we took so much for granted, it cannot be taken for granted. We have to just, we have to fight for it and remember it in all that we do.
What frustrates you with people of your age or your friends?
I think the most frustrating thing for me about anyone, it's always been this way, are people that are not genuine. And I think when you're interacting in social atmospheres, you can see people that are trying to, work the room, so to speak, or act like they know somebody just for the sake of saying they know them. And I prefer people to be just, what you see is what you get. This is who I am, and that's one thing I love about New York. They say New Yorkers are rude, but I think they're good.
You are going into a profession that I call a profession of angels of mercy, to be a doctor. And to join our military, I think that is probably one of the highest callings. What would you say to the audience about patriotism and public service?
With regard to my own involvement?
Just period, yes.
Just period.
From your point of view.
How is it?
Okay.
You may continue.
Okay. Well, one thing I really did want to share with you today is that I feel like in our society today that stereotypes often act as roadblocks or barriers to people's goals. And I've seen that already just since becoming Miss New York. People have said, well, you're serving in the military, but you're Miss New York. How does that work? And to me, it's exciting because I can walk into a school, wearing my uniform and carrying my crown, and I can say, the stereotypes, just throw them out the window because they don't mean anything. If you have a goal and a dream, you have to go after it. And both of them involve service and patriotism. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm here to apply for the job of Miss America, and I have an immediate plan of action to implement. Next week, I'm going to be convening a meeting in New York of some of the top leaders in youth violence prevention. Some of those who have already agreed to join me include the Director of the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights and Safe and Drug-Free Schools, representatives from the American Association of University Women, and the Director of Civil Rights Policy for the Anti-Defamation League. Together, we will begin the creation of a legacy of prevention, which will enhance the brand identity of the Miss America organization and protect our nation's youth.
Erica, I'll ask you first question.
All right, ready.
I was really kind of appalled at your story, and I can't imagine why all the harassment and bullying was taking place to begin with. But for it to continue as it did, whose responsibility was it to stop it? The administrators, the teachers, the school board, superintendent of schools?
All of the above. When I was going through that experience, that was the same question that I asked myself. I was 13 years old and every day afraid to go to school because I knew that my classmates were going to target me. And I told my teacher. I remember one of my math classes, I was sitting in the back, and the students were singing this song about me, and they used the word whore. And the teacher heard me, and instead of stopping it, she waited so the students could finish the song. And so she knew that it was occurring, and she did nothing to stop it. When I went to my school principal to tell him that the students were plotting to kill me, he said, you know what, you need to be more submissive like the rest of the girls. This is your fault. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of the school officials to take this seriously because no child should be put in this position to have to deal with it themselves.
After you've been accepted to Harvard Law School, this platform statement says, why do you want to stop that and become Miss America? What are you going to make, how are you going to make a difference as Miss America rather than going to pursue your law studies?
I say the job of Miss America is really giving me the opportunity to enhance what I want to do in the future. I want a career in public policy, and I want a career perhaps in public interest law. And that's going to mean that I have to understand the needs of the people that I'm going to meet. I'm going to have to understand their concerns, the problems they face on a day-to-day basis, to formulate solutions that really apply to them. I can think of no better way of having that experience than going around the country as Miss America and talking to people on a face-to-face basis and saying, what are your concerns and what can I do to help you?
When were you accepted at Harvard?
I was accepted, I received a letter at the end of February. I think it was January 29th to be exact. I remember. I think it was exactly 2:15. Before I even applied, I told them that there was a possibility that I might need a deferral. And then once they accepted me, I told them, I said, I will be competing in my state pageant. I have a 1 in 35 chance of winning. And so if I win the Miss Illinois pageant, will you defer? And they said they would.
What newspaper do you read every day, other than USA Today?
I like to read the Chicago Tribune. I read the New York Times online, and when I'm back at home, I read my local paper, which is the News Gazette.
Who's your favorite columnist?
My favorite columnist is Chris Matthews, because I like watching his hardball show, and I like how he's so feisty, and I don't always agree with everything he says, but he's passionate. And I like reading what he has to say. It's interesting to see how different he is when he appears in print as when he appears on television.
You want to be a politician? Acting writer. It says here.
Yes, that's the goal. That's the goal right now.
You want to hold on to the state at the national level. Where will you start at the state level? I'm assuming, and when you want to end up?
Well, I was actually discussing this when I went to Washington. I got to meet with Speaker Hastert. And I said, what would be the advice that you would give to someone who aspired to go into politics? And he said, first and foremost, you have to have life experience. He said, you can't think that you're going to graduate from law school and just go become the president, because that is something that I thought I might be able to do. But he said, I set high goals, but he said, you need to have life experience. So I think perhaps I'd want to start maybe at the school board level, at the local level, so I understand how government works before I launch myself into the national level.
Do you think a young age is a detriment to political office?
I don't think it's a young age if you feel that you have all the life experience that you need, but I know myself well enough to know that there's more things that I want to experience before I'm in a position to make public policy.
My last question is, do you think that being a quote-unquote beauty pageant holder is a detriment to your success in politics?
I don't, because I see the process of running for both as very much the same. I had the opportunity to work as the youth coordinator for a candidate governor in Illinois, and I mentioned to him one day the process he was going through was very much like the process I was going through as I was trying to become Miss Illinois. I don't know if he thought that was a good thing or not, but it's very similar because you go through the process of defining yourself, finding out what it is you believe in, implementing different solutions that you think are going to work, and thinking of how you're going to be able to address that with diverse groups of people.
In that vein, in campaigns, the candidates spend a lot of time polling to find out just what the issues are. Do you think that's a good thing?
I see pros and cons with polling because I think it is important to have an idea of where the public stands on a particular position, because if you're a public policymaker, your job isn't just to represent your beliefs, it is to represent your constituencies. On the other hand, if you had no personal beliefs of your own and you're just following those polls, then they could have sent anyone to Washington.
Erica, in reading what you want to do in the 1 year that you might be Miss America, how are you going to accomplish all of it, all of this that you've listed here and you've organized it very well? Can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Before I crafted that statement, I contacted each of these individuals and said, if I become Miss America, can you come to New York the next week and do this? And do you have funding sources already in place that you can help me to align with? And they said, we absolutely do this. We absolutely can do this. Because I went to Washington, D.C. I sat down with these people. I told them why I cared about this and why I thought I should be the spokesperson for their organization. And they agreed, and they said that if I become Miss America, they have resources ready to enable me to do this job.
Your platform seems to be mostly based on protection. How about prevention? What do you see? So obviously, recently the problem of bullying in schools, for instance, has gotten worse in the last 20, 30 years. How do you see that as a society? What do you see as the effective measures we can take to redress that problem, to address that problem?
I think that's such an interesting point because the CDC, which is involved in the public health approach of actual prevention, as you mentioned, they now have a youth violence prevention unit because they recognize that it's not enough as a society for us to be reactive. We can't wait till there's a Columbine. We can't wait till there's Jonesboro and Santee. We have to go in and actually implement measures. One of the things that I think would be most effective is if every state had an anti-harassment policy, because right now only 12 states do. And that means that there are 38 states where young people are not protected and where there are not effective measures in place where if they have this kind of trauma that I experienced, there's nowhere they can turn. I think that's what we have to begin by doing.
Erica, what do you say to people who say it's just human nature, kids tease each other, boys will be boys, just, we have to overlook some things, this is just the way kids behave?
First and foremost, I would tell them to look at a study by the American Association of University Women that found that 80% of students have to face this every day. And it causes them to have such little faith in themselves. They have eating disorders. They want to be invisible. Some of them want to die. And then I would ask them, I would tell them about a young woman that I met. I was going to school, I was talking to kids about bullying, and after I was done talking, a young woman came up to me, and she said, I want to commit suicide now because I'm bullied every day. She's illiterate because she was in a foster care home, was bound from school to school to school, never learned how to read. And so she was bullied on a consistent basis. And I would ask them to look into her eyes and tell her, it's just things that you have to deal with.
What in our society reinforces that bullying nature in children?
I think there's a wide variety of things. When I first was looking at how to approach this issue, I found that there were so many different factors. Some kids who are subjected to abuse at home are much more likely to try to reclaim that power by dominating others. Some kids see that type of behavior validated in the entertainment that they view. Other kids don't recognize the severity of the impact that it can have. They don't recognize that their words have power. I think it's a wide variety of things, which is why as Miss America I would have a multifaceted, holistic approach to dealing with this problem.
What is a motivational speaker? What do you emphasize?
First and foremost, that it is okay to be who you are. There are so many people who go through life feeling that it is not acceptable to be who they are. Maybe they were teased because they were fat, short, too whatever. And they go through life trying to live up to the expectations that they themselves have imposed because they think society wants them to be that way. And as a result, they neglect to become the person that they were destined and meant to be. I tell kids, you be proud of who you are. I don't care what anyone has ever said to you. You are not who they say you are. You define yourself.
Do you think things have changed a little bit in light of 9/11? People are more suspicious of others?
I think that's very much the case. I think there's also racial profiling that is occurring. There's targeting. And in any time of war, people have the tendency to overreact, and you see our civil liberties sort of place on the back burner. And I was actually having a conversation with my brother. He's 14 years old. And he told me that in one of their classes, they were studying stereotypes. And the teacher had each student's group he gave them a group. So maybe they had to talk about people who were Middle Eastern, African American, different groups. And they were supposed to list the different stereotypes. And they listed some of the most ugly, bigoted things. And one of the things that I found so devastating is that the teacher never went back and said, these are stereotypes. He let the kids think that those assumptions and those prejudices they had were acceptable.
Do you think it's okay to put civil liberties on the back burner just for the safety and security of the community?
I think that in times of war, the national defense has to be placed first.
What's your favorite book? We're just running.
Okay. My favorite book is Roots by Alex Haley. It's a book that I'd always heard about, and I never had the opportunity to read. So one summer I sat down and read it, and I just cried and cried and cried because my great-great-grandfather was a slave. And it wasn't until I read that book that I recognized just the impact of that degradation and how it's played out into the cycle of poverty and impoverishment that we see today.
Do you think Miss America presents an impossible stereotype image for other women to meet?
Absolutely not. And with Miss America, what I would do is
Erica, we're going to have to find that out some other time. Unfortunately, your time's up. Could you leave us with some words?
Bullying is not just about statistics. It's about the kids who every day are forced to suffer in silence and are stripped of their humanity, whether it be because they're too fat, too thin, too smart, not smart enough, gay, poor, or not willing to be subjected to those stereotypes. It crushes their spirits, and it's unacceptable. The job of Miss America is about those kids. It is not about me. It's about the 14-year-old girl who is bullied and harassed unrelentingly and unmercilessly every day, and in desperation she hung herself from the rafters at her home and she died. She and the many other victims of this harassment
Erica, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but our time is up. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Good morning. I would like all of you to think for just a second about how many things you read this morning. Maybe it was the paper, maybe it was a weather bulletin, maybe it was my fact sheet before I walked in the door. But the point is, you did it all without a second thought. That's not so easy for 23% of our nation's population that can't read the back of a cereal box. I learned this firsthand from my hometown 5 years ago and learned the importance of seizing every opportunity that I had to make a difference. That's why I'm here today, and that's why I'm very excited about this interview.
Considering that there are 25% of Americans that cannot read, do you think, what's the role of government as far as, in the society in the United States, as far as enforcing literacy, and do you think it should be obligatory?
To make education a top priority. I think that's one of the best things of our current administration, that they are pushing education on the forefront and realizing that that's the best way to strengthen our nation. So much has come after September 11th about nationalism and strengthening America, and I think the best way is to make sure that all of our citizens can read, all of our citizens know math skills, all of our citizens can be productive citizens. And that lowers the crime rate, it lowers the literacy, it lowers welfare rolls, and it just makes our nation more productive.
Would you make that a law? I mean, would you support making it a law that everybody has to be literate up to at a certain age?
Well, I think that the laws that are in place right now is in making sure that school children can read when they are in school, I think is the best way to enforce that. I think it would be difficult to make it any other way.
But if there are laws, how come you have a quarter of the people not being able to read? What happens to those laws?
Unfortunately, a lot of those citizens drop out of school. Unfortunately, a lot of them have parents that can't read, so that when they go home, they don't have that security net to help them with their homework. They don't have someone to make education a top priority, and that's why women in literacy programs, I think, are so important, because if you can educate a woman, you educate her family, and you can break that cycle and lower that statistic.
Miss Alabama, we're a very multicultural, diverse society. Is that a good thing or a bad thing in terms of your platform, and how does the immigration issue come into play here?
I think that we are so diverse, and that's wonderful. I think that, you know, learning from other people's backgrounds is the best way that you can know about yourself. That's the best thing I found from traveling, is that I learn a little bit more about myself every time I meet someone different from me. But I think as far as the ESL programs, that immigration has brought into English as a second language, and that's been a big barrier, especially in Alabama, where there's a large influx of the Hispanic population. So that's something that a lot of literacy providers are now having to learn Spanish, as well as learning how to teach people simply to read English. So that's providing an extra barrier, but it's something that we're all trying to work towards.
Do you think the immigration laws should be tougher? Would that help achieve literacy better if we had a slower immigration into this country?
Not necessarily.
How many people would you suspect are illiterate in their native language?
I'm not current on those statistics.
You mentioned it in the newspapers and reading. What newspapers do you read over here?
Lately, I've been reading the USA Today simply because it's kind of a quick,
little jump through nation events or current events, as well as kind of pop culture, which is something that I enjoy.
Do you have a favorite serious columnist or person who comments on politics?
I like George Will.
This fall, the president of the University of North Carolina mandated or required all incoming freshman students to read a certain book that was based on the Quran, Islam. Do you see that as, because it was
VH1 actually is a whole other entity. They actually a different section of the MTV building. So they aren't really, even though they use the name, they use it for network purposes and promoting, they're still a different entity that has their beliefs and what their mission is to help restore music programs. So although VH1 is doing some things that I might not necessarily agree with, I still let them know that, there is some good things that the Save the Music Foundation is doing, and I would focus on those.
When you were at Oral Roberts, what newspaper did you read every day?
What newspaper at Oral Roberts did I read?
Well, when you were going to college, what newspaper?
The Social World.
Social World. Do you have a favorite columnist?
No, I don't have favorite columnist, No, I don't have one. I'm just reading on.
Let's go back to your platform. Let me give you a situation.
Okay.
As Miss America, you're asked by a inner-city school district to help them with the music program. They know they don't have instruments. And they've asked you to put together a curriculum for K through 6. When they get the instruments, they would be ready. What would you include in that curriculum?
Well, I've actually done that. The 3 and 4-year-olds at Reed Head Start, I had absolutely nothing to work with. They gave me a Casio keyboard, and I took that and just used what was on that keyboard to build the curriculum, teach these 3 and 4-year-olds what they need to know about music. We took the whole notes, and we took an egg, and we divided it in half, and we had 2 half notes. And I brought the kids up and brought them up as demonstrations. Now, if we divided them in 2, I had to visually show them. But I had them all together, 234 3 and 4-year-olds that I had to deal with, just me alone. And I really learned a lot about what I could do with absolutely nothing. And they learned so much. We all were singing. We all had choreography. They knew what whole notes, half notes, quarter notes were. And it was amazing what happened after that short time that I was able to work with them. But I could see where with just a little bit of just the excitement about music and teaching them the basics, I think that we can get that accomplished.
You say you want to get a master's in jazz studies.
Yes.
What university offers a curriculum like that?
The University of North Texas. It's the number one jazz school in America, I believe.
Have you spent time in regional theaters yourself?
In regional theaters?
In regional theaters.
In which one?
Regional.
Regional theater?
I understood that you wanted to be an actress in regional and national theaters.
For commercials.
For commercials?
Yes, I want to be a commercial spokesperson for a business. But a car salesman, Pepsi, I would love to do any of that stuff. That's
And
what
an
makes me
actress.
tick.
And it suggested you wanted to be an actress.
Well, just performing in the commercials, not an actress on a show, but just happened to be hired as a spokesperson.
Do you have a favorite playwright?
No.
Casey, could you please tell me what is included in your CD, the classical music CD that you were trying to get distributed nationally, and who are you distributing it to?
Okay. Well, what I did is the Tulsa Youth Symphony and the ORU String Orchestra donated their recordings that they had learned, the different songs they had learned for those past 2 semesters. They donated the recordings to me. I got a friend who did the graphics. I got raised some money for sponsorships for obviously the manufacturing is all that I had to pay. So it only cost me $2,000 to make this CD, and it was 1,000 CDs, 250 audio cassettes, full color, full everything. It's on my website. You can actually go to my website and see it. But I distributed nationwide to 750 child care centers, affecting over 100,000 children. The program that says it was 10,000, but it's 100,000 children in 35 states, and it was through Wapatite Academy. And they actually made my CD part of their curriculum that they distributed throughout the nation. So my CD made a more impact than I ever thought it could.
Casey, is it important for Miss America to be a trendsetter or a trend follower?
Trendsetter, definitely. Because you're a leader. You're setting obviously setting the trend for the rest of the nation. And a lot of those look up to you. A lot of people do. And especially this year. This year is because of the end of the year. Because Miss America needs to be a leader because of what our nation's gone through this past year and now what we're going to have to go through in the future.
Well, what if some young lady came up to you and said, the way your dress is just so square. I prefer Britney Spears and hip huggers and short tank tops. And you're square, Miss America.
I actually don't personally believe that I'm square. I tend to be a little more fashion forward when it comes to pageant clothes. I mean, I anti-pageant clothes just because I tend to be on the cutting edge. If you will notice my wardrobe while I'm here, I just definitely am not the typical pageant girl. And so when the people would ask me about that type of a question, I would be like, I am into the trends, the newest styles, the latest fashion, because that's who I am. So hopefully that wouldn't be a comment that they would make.
What's your position on prayer in school?
What's
your position on prayer in school?
I am for what the decision has been made. Although I am a strong Christian, I still believe that we all have the right to our own religion, and I wouldn't want anyone to force onto me what my exact prayer that I should use in the school. So I think that by us not having it in the school at all, it gives us that. Now, I've only lived in Harrisburg, Mississippi, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, I have traveled.
Your father, you didn't travel with your father?
No, he only moved to Atlanta, Georgia when I was 2.
I see.
But that was for a short amount of time. I vaguely remember much about that
But you
experience.
studied in Europe?
I did study.
Well, take those two experiences. What did they contribute to your knowledge about diversity?
Oh, absolutely. Well, what happened was my choir went on a tour, and we've been to England, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and then also went to the Caribbean as well. But it was a humanities experience as well. So although I was on a choir tour, we got credit for humanities because we took enjoy that opportunity. Because I really am very visual and hands-on kind of a person. To actually see the history of the country come alive, that's really what changed everything.
What do you feel about the sex education in schools and the availability of birth control for kids?
How do I feel about sex education in general? I guess I'm trying to understand what you said.
In schools in particular.
Schools.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's good, but I think we should start at a certain level. I know that now the children seem to be having sex earlier, and that seems to be a problem. So I think that we probably should address the level of education starting at about, I would say, 4th or 5th grade, just because that's when the hormones are starting to begin. I think that that's where they need to know that the consequences of their actions and let them know up front that there could be some problems if you do go down this road in the future.
But do you think there should be available condoms, for instance, should be available to them or not?
You know, actually, personally, I don't believe in condoms, but at the same time, these kids are going to have sex regardless of if we give them condoms or not. So I would rather see them with a condom in their hand than not, although I personally would not want them to. I would encourage them not to even have sex at all. But at the same time, I would rather them be protected than to have a possibility of disease or unwanted pregnancy. Elvis is Fitzgerald by far.
What are you going to sing for us?
Actually, a song about Elvis Fitzgerald. If you can't sing it, you'll have to sing it, Mr. Pageant.
And who are your favorite jazz pianists?
Jazz pianists?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do I have a favorite one? I don't think I do. I'm really big into vocals, so obviously...
Can you name me a couple?
Duke Ellington, isn't he? It's really wonderful. I mean, he's one of the classic one that everyone listens to. But,
What's your favorite book?
My favorite book? Well, I read a book called Maximum Achievement by Brian
Casey,
Tracy.
we're going to have to hear about that some other time.
Oh, really?
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
I can't remember my so fast. Well, you know, before I left, I want you guys to know, I've come to a point in my life where I've realized that life is not about what I can get. It's about what I can give. And as Casey Presser, as Miss Oklahoma, or Miss America, it doesn't matter what my title is. It doesn't matter what the situation. Because my greatest gift is my ability to reach out and touch lives. There's a key element in making a difference, and that's having a servant's heart. I have that heart. I have that passion. I have what it takes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hi, I'm Teresa Benitez, and I'm coming to you today from the great state of Nevada, a state that I proudly call home, but a state that realistically faces a number of challenges. What I hope that we're able to talk about today is how I've been able to not only turn the tides of misfortune in my state to create positive change, but also my own personal life as well, and how the Miss America program has played a part of that. I'm the first one in my family to have a degree complement to the Miss America program, and I plan to continue on with my education, obtain a master's in social degree, so that I can write policy that will be affecting the lives of our nation's impoverished communities. With that being said, I'm excited for this interview. But not everybody at once.
I think doctors will follow by
Tell me what newspaper you read every day, and what...
The New York Times, and then my local paper, the Reno Gazette Journal, as well as a paper from the Southern Nevada called the Las Vegas Sun. The political notebook pages of each are very interesting to me, as well as the lifestyle page that covers theater, arts, entertainment, and the front page, of course, for what's happening with the big events in the world.
Teresa, do you consider the Welfare Reform Act a success or a failure?
I do not consider it a success. And the reason why is because in terms of moving people off the welfare rolls, yes, it was successful. We got a number of people off the welfare rolls. In terms of reducing poverty, specifically the child poverty rate in this nation, no, it was not a success.
Where's the greatest need for policy change?
Greatest need for policy change in terms of welfare reform? Within the educational structure and what we allow recipients to do in terms of getting an education. Right now it's very limited. If you're receiving public assistance in the form of temporary assistance to needy families from the government, you cannot pursue an education. And what we've worked really hard in the state of Nevada and at the national level to try and change is that if you are a person who's a recipient of funds from the government in the form of welfare, that you have access to a wide variety of educational opportunities, including 4-year degrees.
Well, how do you help people that don't know about these programs? I mean, they don't know where to go, they don't have the internet.
Well, the Nevada Empowered Women's Project, which is a nonprofit organization I helped co-found 5 years ago, is a great resource within the state of Nevada for that. We do a lot of outreach with brochures in both English and Spanish so that we can reach our large Latino community that exists in the state of Nevada. Our numbers everywhere, and we actually referred out through the welfare and social services in the state of Nevada. So we're always getting calls from people asking about the different types of resources that are available and then directing and guiding them. I, over the past 5 years, have made a number of trips to people's houses to pick them up and drive them down and show them this is where your local food stamp office is, this is where your food bank is, this is where your Salvation Army is. Remember it. If you need me, call me. If I can't get to you, we'll make sure that one of the many volunteers in Nevada Empowered
programs that's being proposed to be added to welfare reform is a large program to encourage marriage.
Yes, marriage initiative.
Tell me what you think about that.
I think that I actually am not a proponent of it, and the reason why is because I believe it's a fallacy that just if we marry single women off, that is going to make their economic and social status a lot better. What I think that we need to focus on are programs, specifically educational programs, so that regardless of your marital status, you can become economically self-sufficient.
Please don't tell my mother that you believe that. I think she's marrying her daughters off of a good thing.
Well, I have no problem with marriage. I mean, one of the big things is I love marriage. I cannot wait to get married myself and have a family, and I look forward to not only a great career, but being a great mom as well. But I think it's a policy solution that our government can't step in and start dictating morals to certain segments of the population and say, look, just because you are a low-income individual, if you want assistance, you're going to have to get married or you're going to starve.
What's the most overwhelming impact of poverty?
I think the most overwhelming impact is the impact it has on the children. My mom was a waitress until just a couple years ago, so we were raised on and off the system. Mom at different times in our lives needed to get help with food stamps, and we lived with my grandparents for a number of years. I think that when how the children are affected is that, in my case, separation from family. You don't get to live with mom. You get to see mom when she's working 3 or 4 jobs. And the children are the ones who are affected the most by it. We see it in our dropout rates. In our urban cities, you'll see that the communities with the highest levels of poverty are also the communities with the highest level of dropouts, the highest level of violence.
I see that you're interested in politics. You have to be.
I am. I'll be Senator Benitez, so if you're in the state of Nevada, you have to vote for me. Should we be on the same page politically, that is?
On that. How do you propose to get more young people to the polls?
Well, I've actually done voter registration work for a number of years. And the way that I like to encourage the youth to get out and vote and to fight apathy in general across the nation is to try and convince people of the power that one vote has. And the state of Florida is not doing anything to help me out right now, I'll tell you that. But to convince them that, especially in a small state like Nevada, where we do have more of a hallway-type legislature, that your voice matters. You play a role in this policy process. There are policies on the table that are being created that will affect your lives, and you need to show up to the poll. You need to make your voice counted. It's the basis of a democracy. It's a patriotic duty. Let's get out there, kids.
Teresa, do you think that the United States should make a preemptive strike against Iraq?
Not without the support of the international community and the support of the United States Congress.
Why?
Because I believe that if we try to go in fighting and swinging against Saddam Hussein in Iraq without the support of the United Nations and without the support of the Congress, then we're going to end up falling flat on its face. And I think it's such an important issue that we do go in and tackle Saddam so that we don't end up in another Cold War scenario, that we go in with a clear, planned-out campaign, an entrance strategy, an exit strategy, and that we have the support of the United Nations and the international community there. Because we want to take on just them. We don't want to end up having to take on entire actions to the rest of the world at the same time.
Do you see anything that would parallel us knowing about Adolf Hitler in 1933?
I see a lot of
not
parallels.
doing anything about it for 7 years?
Well, because if we don't go in with a good exit strategy and we take Saddam Hussein out of power and we end up with an Iraqi government and Iraqi people who are without a leader and just kind of milling around with a lot of negative energy against the United States, there's a potential for, just like we saw in World War II, for an even more leader to grow there who will become more potent than Saddam Hussein because you have an intense hatred towards the United States, a country that is poor in a diaspora, and then a leader who can motivate those people in exactly the type of scenario. I think the potential is there at least for that.
Do you think the current system in which we fund our public education system is fair?
Is fair the way in which we fund it? Do you mean as far as just collecting taxes for it? And
How
getting
public education is paid for, the mix between federal and local involvement in terms of financing. Do you think it's fair?
You know, I hesitate to comment on that just because I'm not an expert on the way. I'm familiar with TANF funds.
If you're going to be a senator, you're going to have to comment on a lot of things you don't know anything about.
Absolutely. And in that case, I would have my aide hand me a stack of paperwork and I would
And I know how that feels.
Well, one thing that, because I was a speech and debater all throughout high school for 4 years, and the one thing I learned in speech and debate is that you don't articulate an opinion unless you can do so with well thought out reason. And not having studied that, I would hesitate to make a general ambivalent comment and then look like an idiot when I, sit down and really study the issue and then give you a good, clear, thought out comment with good reasoning behind it.
What's the last book that you read?
I'm actually in the middle of a great book, and Anne Ryan's Atlas Shrugged. It's a classic. It's a 5th book. I've been working on it for 2 months. Love it. It was given to me by a friend who thought that I really enjoyed the story.
But how about her philosophy? Do you agree with her philosophy?
No, actually, I'm on a different page. I'm actually on a different page of her philosophy. For those of you who haven't read the book, it's a book that talks about objectivism and talks about the power of big business and how government kind of needs to step back, and too much government interference will pretty much cause more of a chaotic world. And it was given to me by someone who thought that I was needed to pull to the center of the political spectrum, if you will. And I appreciate it, and I like the book, and I love the story. And I have no problems learning and reading about other philosophies, political philosophies that aren't my own. I think it's a very intriguing book, and it gives me a lot of insight. And it challenges me to reconsider and think about my own political stance, and I appreciate that.
When you take philosophy to the policy level, the development of policy, public policy, what are some of the initial steps that you feel you have to go through, whether you're at the state level or the national level?
Well, doing work throughout the Nevada Empowered Women's Project, I believe that where policy needs to be initiated is at the grassroots level, that things need to come from the people, since we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. At New Project, what we try to do is bring people to the table who've had real experiences with the policy that's being created so that their voices can be heard. Because a lot of times with different types of senators and legislators that we have, they're creating policy on issues that they don't know a lot about. We have senators right now who are writing new welfare laws who have never experienced poverty. And so I think grassroots efforts help to give perspective into better policy
Put yourself into that. What would you do?
What do I do?
What would you do to help if you have a problem with a favorite piece that you want to move?
Well, what I have been doing over the years is I have 4 times accepted the invitation to lobby on Capitol Hill, sit down with key congressional members and their staff to talk about my own story and about policy situations that I think would truly help the nation's impoverished people. I've also done that at my local state legislature with the head of my governor on a couple of times, and with the head of the Nevada State Welfare Department.
Did you think the McCain-Feingold legislation was a good idea?
The campaign finance reform? I think it was, because I think the discussion for campaign finance reform is long overdue. And while I think that it moved us in the right direction, I don't think it got us nearly where we need to be in terms of getting money out of politics and restoring one vote to one person in the theory of democracy in general.
So the heightened awareness that we have of racial profiling these days, as well as our sensitivity to it since 9/11, do you think that's jeopardizing our national security?
I think that we need to be conscious and aware of everything that's happening in our country, and I think that while racial profiling is happening, that we can't be so naive to believe that the only terrorists in this world are those who are coming from a specific racial background. We know that domestic terrorism is still a large threat in the United States, and that we need to keep our eyes open for everyone, and that racial profiling law does serve a purpose, might be judgmental, because we can't just look at one population and not know what those other ones are doing.
Well, for instance, I was on twice going on a non-stop flight yesterday.
John, I'm sorry.
And it was random.
Our time is up, unfortunately.
I'm always putting on my shoes.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
I would. 6.5 years ago, I saw a vision become a reality when the Nevada Empowerment Project became a legal nonprofit organization. Since our inception, we've been able to create a voice for those families who are stuck in poverty and who are truly working hard to survive and move themselves out of poverty. Through the Miss America organization, I've been able to share that message with an entirely new audience, having accepted the invitation to lobby on Capitol Hill 4 times. The Miss America organization has funded my undergraduate degree and truly has allowed me to develop myself from the inside out. And that work is translated and carried over into everything I've done, especially with the Nevada Empowered Women's Project.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. As a 5-year-old child, I had no idea that the violin my parents placed in my tiny hands would lead me down so many wonderful roads in life. I believe with all my heart that the arts can open many doors for young people, and I got to tell you, standing here before you today is the pinnacle experience of my life. Encouraging youth involvement in the arts is a mission that got me here, and it's more than a platform title. It's a description of my life.
Please don't ask your question. At the moment, with the economic situation and downturn of the economic situation, as you know, lots of orchestras are in danger of closing. The people take their money away from the arts as soon as the stock market goes down, and contributions are less, and it's very problematic right now. Considering this state of affairs, if it continues and you were to be Miss America, how would you go about finding funding to promote your cause?
Well, I would target corporate America. I mean, I think that when we have budget cuts, especially in the marketing department, it's unfortunate because those are the people that advertise and get the message out there about the programs at the Kennedy Center and, you know, for the Chicago Symphony. I think that corporate America and just private donors, I would ask for their help and do that through the media. Some corporations are filing for Chapter 11, and they're cutting back on their corporate giving too. So, what other avenues would you pursue?
Well, we have our government agencies like the National Endowment for the Arts, and then we also have just people who have been affected by the arts and will just give donations as well. I think that we can also use the people in corporate America who have been donated and actually encourage others to do the same because they have been models for us.
How are young public schools and private schools in supporting your whole vision for arts for children?
Well, there's a wonderful program that is integrated for second graders, and it's called the Sprinkle Friendship Kids Opera. It was actually founded by the Metropolitan Opera Guild in 1983, and it's a wonderful vehicle for teachers to incorporate the making of an opera in second grade classes. So what I would orchestra, I was a member of this orchestra, exposed to orchestral classical music, and through this program, I got so many opportunities to travel abroad to different countries, and therefore I gained a greater appreciation of people from different lands. So I would focus on the opera, the kids' opera, in the second grade curriculum, and then model programs like the BC Youth Orchestra.
What countries made the biggest difference to you that you've traveled?
Made the biggest difference?
When you traveled to that country?
Well, I went to Spain in 1992. And I was the youngest one on tour, so I was homesick, but it was a lot of fun because I was able to make music with people who were as old as 30, but we kind of put our differences aside and just focused on the blend of making music. And so actually, what I've learned from these other countries is that we have more commonalities than differences.
Camille, with the economic downturn, some in Maryland are suggesting that slot machines be installed in the racetrack. What do you think about that?
Well, I have to go with Kathleen Kennedy-Townsend on that. I'm against the gambling, and I don't think we should use slot machines to, uproot the economy.
What about the lottery in terms of funding schooling? Schools need money. Do you think that's a good approach for money for schools?
I think it would help, definitely, but at the same time, I think we should stick with our government and seeking corporate America, because investing in our youth is an investment for the future.
Well, I was glad to hear you say that Silver Spring is considered an inner-city community, because I don't really think of it as such. But can you tell me, do you support statehood for the District of Columbia?
Yes, I do. I think they should have a voice in Congress, and I definitely support the statehood for the District of Columbia. I'm so close, and so I
red line.
have a voice.
What newspaper do you read every day?
What newspaper? I read, of course, the Washington Post, USA Today, the Times.
Is there any columnists on the editorial page that you particularly follow?
I don't have a particular favorite columnist, but in terms of talk shows and radio shows, I listen to a variety of people, Rush Limbaugh, Hardball with Chris Matthews. I like to get the liberal and conservative perspectives and then formulate my own opinion.
Tell me about your internship with the National Symphony Orchestra.
This was a wonderful opportunity for me. Let me tell you, I got the experience of a lifetime, and I actually made the life-defining decision to pursue a career as a musician through this internship. I was one of 11 selected, and this was out of the metropolitan area, tri-state, Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., and I got the opportunity to become involved in master classes with people like Nadja Salerno-Sonnenberg, Yo-Yo Ma, and Peter Superman, and I also got the opportunity to study with a National Symphony Orchestra member for 2 years of free tuition scholarship, which really helped my parents. And the hardest part about this program is that you have to take 2 days off a month in school. So I really had to network and form a very good relationship with my teachers so I could get the assignments needed to keep up in classes.
Did you ever meet Leonard Slatkin?
Yes, I did. Leonard Slatkin is wonderful. In fact, since 9/11, he's incorporated the audience to stand up and actually sing the national anthem, and I think that's very patriotic, and it really gets your heart stirred. I attended a concert recently, and it was just wonderful that this was being incorporated.
Who are your favorite conductors outside Leonard Slatkin, Placido Domingo, and Rostropovich? Who are your favorite conductors and why?
The Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, Yuri, I don't know if I can pronounce his last name, Termikanov?
Termikanov, yes.
Yes, I think he's wonderful. I attended a concert. It was Ichak Perlman who played the Mendelssohn Concerto E minor, and I think he has just a wonderful style of conducting.
And other conductors around the country that you know of, that you also admire?
I haven't really ventured out to other countries, but...
How about in this country?
In this country?
In this country. How about New York or anywhere else?
Let's see.
Any other that comes to mind that you like this style of conducting?
Well, of course, Leonard Slatkin.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Leonard Slatkin and Yuri are my two, so...
Okay.
What's your favorite book?
I love The Prayer of Jabez for Women by Darlene Wilkinson, and I read it for meditation and prayer and just to get through daily life struggles. It took me 4 years to win my title, and so you hear a lot of things like, oh, she'll always be the bridesmaid and never the bride, or can she really do it and get over that hurdle? And I was first runner-up twice, so that's a hard position to be in, but I think that I have a lot of persistence and kind of tune out the negativity and just stay focused on serving the community.
What is crossover classical violin?
Crossover classical violin. Well, I am classically trained, but my platform is encouraging youth involvement in the arts. And for 3 years, I played the Mendelssohn Concerto in E minor. In 2 minutes of it, my professor cringed because it was such a short excerpt. But my students would ask me, why do you play, what do you play for your talent? And I tell them the Mendelssohn, and they're like, well, you know, that's nice, but they can't really relate to it because the classical arts aren't as exposed to young people as they should be. And so what I did is I was watching TV one day, and then I saw a string quartet, Bond, perform their new CD, and I just saw them. They were dressed up like Britney Spears, and they were playing classical music. And I just thought they were phenomenal. The way they projected to the audience, how they connected with the audience, and they really were singing Barbara Seville, but it's also a blend of contemporary and salsa, and it shows the best side of my personality.
Would you describe your Arts and Hearts program?
Oh, this is also another favorite plank of my platform. I began this program about 2 years ago, and I volunteer at the Children's Inn, which is a facility for very sick children. They live there with their families while they receive treatment for their diseases, and they come from all over the world. I received a grant to purchase instruments for these children, and it was in the memory of a child who had been touched by the music that I gave one evening. And so what I do is go over to the Children's Inn twice a month and actually work with these children, give them that hands-on experience to take their minds off of the daily medications that they have to take. And it's a time for bonding between the students. Sometimes you see parents in the rafters, and you don't actually know if they're going to come down, but when they see that we're having a lot of fun, they actually decide to join in. So it's a wonderful program, and I hope to expand it into other hospitals across the country.
What grant from NIH?
Yes.
I was going to ask you, looks like we're getting into a war in Iraq, and Miss America, whoever it may be, will have to deal with that. How do you think you'd handle it?
Well, I think it's a time for unity and a time for us to defend our freedoms and the nation that we love so much. I think that Americans are very strong and courageous, and I commend President Bush for his selection of his wonderful cabinet and for prioritizing Homeland Security. And I think that as a nation, we've already seen that we've come together. Arts organizations...
No, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but your time is up.
Oh.
Did it go fast?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll give you a little bit more time to leave us with any thoughts you'd like to.
Well, it's difficult to describe the effects that music has on people's lives. How do you measure the health benefits to a child who is suffering from illness, who experiences the soothing sounds of an instrument played by his own hands? How do you measure the joy that fills the heart of the elderly that's visited by the youth ensemble when they live in a home? How do you measure the improved cognitive and social abilities of a child who learns discipline and timing by studying an instrument? The beneficiaries of youth involvement in the arts are countless, from the young musicians to the proud parents, the listening audience.
Camille, thank you very, very much for coming today. It was great talking with you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.